You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Springtime is here, and I am feeling it. I'm feeling the spring vibes. I must say, I am really feeling the new energy that spring has brought. And it also reminds me of another special milestone moment that now when spring arrives, I now have this other reminder of another awakening that is near and dear to my life. So today, on this day, if you're listening to this show on Monday, this is a special day. March 24th is my alphaversary, which this is my baby's first alphaversary, which, you know, for those who are in Greek life, or specifically in the Divine Nine, you know that your anniversary is, you know, kind of a, you know, cool moment. So 1 year ago, around this, you know, time, I crossed the greatest fraternity in all mankind, and that is Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which is the first Black intercollegiate fraternity founded on December 4th, 1906, on an icy cold Tuesday at Cornell University. And here we are, over a century later, still standing. And it's been quite a year, you know. I'm in my Neo era, for those who know that know. And quite a year it's been. Thinking about when I first crossed and now where I am. You know, I am in a part of a great chapter, the Mighty Row chapter, which has been around for over 110 years. I'm just totally grateful and excited, and you know, it's been quite a year in so many great ways. I had such a great bond with my line brothers. It's 13 of us, the 13 pharaohs of fire and ice. And we have just taken over the fraternity by storm. We're doing so many great things. We're serving on the local and national level. Some of us. I'm serving on an administration that is two administrations. I'm serving on the local chapter administration, and I'm also serving for the general president of our beloved fraternity. And it's just if you would have asked me 5 years ago around this time when we was like deep in the pandemic that I would be an alpha, I would have been like, oh, that ship has sailed. I think, you know, that possibility is there. But you just never know, you know? You never know when destiny hits. And I've always felt like this was destiny for so many different reasons. And I'm grateful to be here and to be a part of this great brotherhood and to do some transformational things. And to be a part of change, because there's a lot going on, both nationally, both within Greek life as we know it. And this is a forward-moving fraternity and institution, you know, forward-moving, progressive, just moving things in the right direction. And that feels good. So I'm just forever excited. And there's so much work to happen. We got a national convention in mid-July that's going to be in Philadelphia. Our general convention will be in Philadelphia this year, and I'm all in. I'm registered. I'm fired up and ready to go. So much. So, you know, you're going to see some pictures and all kind of things this week. You know, I'm going to be definitely hype as the kids say, Joe, with it. But it's a good time, and we need moments of joy and celebration, specifically for Black institutions and especially where we are now. So I'm just very, very, very grateful and very happy. And so much is coming soon. So many cool announcements and endeavors, and I'm just excited. So, yeah, happy Alphaversary to me. Um, but yeah, one important note that I want to make is that there's been a lot of other um, celebrations happening around this season. There is a lot of exciting things happening for spring that I am going to be hinting at. For those people who, listen to certain parts and bits, I'm going to drop some shocking tea and some very big exciting news at the end of the podcast. Um, and it's quite an announcement that I'm been processing. And I haven't said it anywhere on social media or anything. So I'm going to say it here, but we just keep it here for the podcast. We're not going to get too tell all. I feel like I want to drop little nuggets of updates and things. I don't know if I want to tell everything right now, but I'll tell something. I'm going to tell the bulk of it. I won't tell who's involved yet. Now, my friends, my close friends, I might tell a little bit more, of course, but I'm going to save some things. 'Cause I do like an element of surprise. As a Libra, I don't like receiving surprises that are like not under my purview, but I love surprising people. So it's kind of a contradiction there, but not really. I like giving surprises. I don't necessarily like receiving surprises, per se. But depends on what it is. So, we make it do what it do. But I got some excited news to share, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned. But until we get to that, into there, what did I do? All the things. So Sunday was a really great Sunday supper. Um, Mr. Johnson decided that he wanted to cook, like not just meals that he enjoys, but like an actual Sunday supper. So myself and my younger brother, who is getting ready to graduate from Temple, like the clock is ticking. There is going to be two college graduates in this brotherhood tribe of ours. And, the little one, he's going to be 15 in April, the youngest one, the baby. So I always say I have a younger brother and I have a baby brother. So the baby brother is going to turn 15 next month in April, and he's going to be on his way to college. I mean, I don't want to doom scroll and say, well, if the Department of Education, but you know what, we're going to talk about the Department of Education in a minute. We're going to get over there with that Department of Education in a minute. But I just want to say that I'm happy. I'm glad that he's we get we got one more left. We got one more left. We're going then the cycle's gonna be complete. But the graduation's coming. So we had a nice dinner at the house. Mr. Johnson cooked. Okay, and let me be clear. It wasn't just nothing to say that all meals matter. Okay, sustenance matter, but this was grand. It was ribeye steak, a mushroom risotto, and like Brussels sprouts, and it was everything. And for dessert, which let me just say, I've had this. This is how I know it's springtime. So Jenny's ice cream. I don't know if you all have heard of Jenny's. I don't talk about Jenny's. I talk about Van Lauren's a lot because I like the Earl Grey flavor, which is one of my all-time favorite ice cream flavors. Ben and Jerry's. We gotta put Ben and Jerry's away right now, y'all. Not to say there's a boycott, but they didn't let go of the CEO, and it's been some stuff going on with Ben and Jerry's. They trying to cut at their progressiveness over there at that ice cream spot. So we're not really eating Ben and Jerry's right now, y'all. I know. We love Ben and Jerry's, but they over there, trying to, the board and the team is trying to really clamp down on the progressiveness of that ice cream spot. And I love Ben and Jerry's because of that. But they, we gotta let them know that we're not happy with what they're doing over there. But um, Jenny's ice cream is here. If you can get access, if you're in the US, I don't know where Jenny's at all over the country, but I know that Jenny's is in Philly. I know it's in New York. DC, other places you gotta find it. But in Philly, for all my Philly folks in surrounding suburbs, Jenny's, you can order the ice cream from Uber Eats now. So if you don't want to go all the way to a location or whatever, you can order Jenny's. Like you can get the pints in Philly. You can order it through Uber Eats and they will deliver it at your house. Like I just did. But they have a flavor that they have for the spring, and it's called goat cheese and cherry. Now you might say to yourself, goat cheese and cherry, what is that flavor? That sounds weird. Let me tell you something. It is one of the best flavors, period. It is called goat cheese with red cherries. That is the flavor. Now, for those people who understand the chemistry of ice cream when it comes to sweet ratio and creaminess and all those things, you know what this really tastes like, right? Because we were like, I don't know about goat cheese. Sit down. If you've actually like understand that goat cheese being combined with the sweet cream and everything of ice cream with red cherries, what does that taste like? Look, I sound like I'm getting professor mode. Like when I talk to my students, I always ask them a question and I have them think. That is a cherry cheesecake flavor, y'all. That is a cherry cheesecake flavor. Okay. That is a cherry cheesecake flavor, basically, in that shell. They're probably not calling it cheesecake because of the fact that with like, okay, so when Ben and Jerry's, which has one of the best cheesecake flavors in a pint, there's strawberry cheesecake flavor, which is one of my favorite, like just I have a list of my like maybe top five ice cream flavors of all time. But it evolves and changes through time. But like right now, my ranking in no particular order because my mood changes, and I can't even eat this anymore right now because I'm on protest. But I will just name some. So Ben and Jerry's, I do like their strawberry cheesecake flavor. That is phenomenal. Um, Talenti or Talentini for the hood, but Talenti, their sea salt caramel is really really good. That sea salt caramel flavor is just awesome. Van Leeuwen's, their Earl Grey flavor is superior. That is a very good, unique flavor that I will never forget. Jenny's, this goat cheese and red cherries. Now, let me be very clear. Each of these companies that I've named have, oh, and Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs, I like, so when I'm at CVS and I want to get the four, that Dolce flavor from Haagen-Dazs is also superior, okay? Don't play with her. And for my people in Texas, Bluebell's ice cream, y'all, that pecan pralines and cream, that might be my all-time favorite ice cream flavor. Okay, the pecan praline and cream flavor from Bluebell might be my favorite all-time favorite flavor. I grew up on that. There's no Bluebell ice cream in Philly, so unfortunately I haven't had it. And every time I go back home, I get a chance to have it, but it's nowhere near here. But that is a good ass flavor. Now, to be clear, all of these companies I name have also other great flavors. So like Van Leeuwen has a good, that bramble crumb one that they have, that's pretty good too. Jenny's has a really good, what's that, butter cake one that they do, the gooey cake batter one. That's good too. That's also good too. I do like that flavor. Uh, Ben and Jerry's, that chocolate on chocolate brownie fudge one. That's also a great alternative flavor too. You know that you can't go wrong. So there's other flavors that are good. And then Haagen Dazs. For those who like to keep it real missionary. Their plain vanilla one is good. If you just want vanilla, you just want to be, I'm not gonna say basic, but if you just want a plain vanilla, that slaps. If you just want a basic vanilla flavor, that's not gonna break the bank. But I like to say flavors that take risks, unique flavors that do. Talentini, they got a good pistachio one. The pistachio one is good too for alternative flavor. So if you didn't like the other one, try the alternative. But my top five right now is the ones I just named. Because it's spring. Let's talk about ice cream. Let's talk about, going out and getting ready to be cute. We love a good ice cream spot. RIP, well, I can't even say RIP. I did like Reckley's. Reckley's is back. But Reckley's it's not bad. Let me just clarify and say it's not bad. It's just that it's such a very local hyper Philly thing that I do like their ice cream sandwiches. I do like their unique flavors, but it's something that I probably have like once a year. Like it's just really hard to just find those places or just it's just a very niche thing. But I do like Reckley's ice cream in Philly. They're really good. Uh, who else? I mean, who else is out here trying to do something that I can think of? I miss Capogiro. That was my all-time favorite ice cream shop in Philly. Like that was my all-time go-to spot. That was my spot. Okay, and it has not, nothing's been the same. I do like Cloud Cups. Cloud Cups is good if you want gelato. And I know people say gelato ice cream difference, whatever. I do like Cloud Cups. Cloud Cups is fun because they have experimental flavors. If you really want some really good, if you're like a picky, you got different allergies, you can't eat certain things. They got a flavor for everything. They got vegan gelato. They got, some with nuts, some without. I mean, they got a bunch of different flavors. That is that, and it's black owned, and so I really do like them. I really like them a lot. So I will say shout out to Cloud Cups as well. They have really great experimental flavors, and I do appreciate them. But yeah, I mean, this is the season. So dessert was fabulous. That was just the goat cheese with the red cherries. You can get a pint of that. You can order it if you're Uber Eats girl. You can Uber Eats you some Jennies. If you live in other states or cities, see if you can get over there and get you a pint of that. It is fire. But for my people that are lactose intolerant, there are dairy-free options that are just as good. There are gelatos. I mean, they don't have a dairy-free option of that goat cheese and red cherries. I wouldn't even know what that would taste like. But vegan, listen, ice cream places are really stepping up their game with vegan options, dairy-free options. They are stepping up their game with it. So, and listen, fruity gelato still exists. So if you are lactose intolerant, now if you are lactose intolerant, you be cheating. Do I can I let me, my lawyer might say, okay, I won't well, let me not prescribe people cheating because that could create a risk and liability. But if you are cheating on your or your lactose diet and you got some tablets or supplements or whatever to immediately address the issue or whatever you got to do, and you're already out here in these streets sliding and you've been taking risks before in this place, I don't know. Maybe the dairy on dairy might be a little too much dairy for you. So I don't know if I could say cheat for this. It's worth cheating on. I don't know. But all I'm gonna say is that this is really good. That's all. I'm not telling you to do it. You know that video with the guy says, I'm not telling you to do it, but if you were to do it, I mean, it's bad. I'm not saying you should, but if you do, it could be good. It would be good, but don't. That's my response. And now we know what he's really talking about. We know what he's talking about, even though he has not said what he's talking about. And I do agree, even though I know it shouldn't be done. But if it is done, I mean, would it really be that bad? You know what I mean? We should not be thinking like this. But there are times where I'm like, someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. I'm surprised. It's been done before. And folks were successful. And some people have failed. But damn, not anyone's going to have the courage to do it. Because they should. What am I talking about? I'm talking about ice cream and being lactose intolerant. No. Am I? Maybe. I'm just saying, sometimes it's okay to take the risk if it's going to be for the greater good or for you. It's a choice. I don't know. See what I did there? Okay, moving along. So I went to a great screening and I met an incredible Tony nominated, Oscar nominated, Emmy nominated actor, Brian Tyree Henry. He is the executive producer and the star of the new Apple TV show Dope Thief, which is now available to view right now. You can watch it on Apple TV for you Apple TV lovers. I saw the pilot episode, the first episode this week, and I got a chance to actually talk to him, and I got a chance to do a little interview and ask him questions about his new show, and I got a picture with him. Very nice guy, very great actor. You meet people and you see them on TV and you imagine they are cool, you hear good things about them, but then we meet them in person, they're just as good as you would imagine. He is a teddy bear. Like, he's got versatility as an actor because on Atlanta he comes off as he played Paperboy on Atlanta for those who remember. He's a dark-skinned actor. He's a big guy, but he used to be bigger, but he's slimmed down a little bit. But he was Paperboy on Atlanta, and his whole character was very much very nonchalant, very like just no shits, given attitude. But he's mixed it up in different roles. He was in If Beale Street Could Talk. He was in Castaway, which he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor alongside Jennifer Lawrence, who was in that film. That was supposed to be her comeback film, but she didn't really come back as much. But he got the Oscar nomination, which was a shocker. He was in the original cast of The Book of Mormon on Broadway. He was in Broadway first. See, I always tell y'all these Broadway actors. So he was on Broadway in The Book of Mormon and got nominated for Best Featured Actor. He played the African tribal leader. I won't tell too much details about it, but he was the original cast of Book of Mormon first. And a lot of y'all faves were on Broadway before they hit the big screen, okay? Sterling K. Brown was on Broadway. Yeah, did y'all know that? Mm-hmm. A lot of your faves were, before they hit the big league. I mean, Larry Fishburne or Lawrence Fishburne, did y'all know he's a Tony winning actor? Won, Tony. Now, some of your faves, they didn't start on Broadway, or they kind of did a little something on Broadway before they really hit the big screen. And that was Denzel Washington. But Denzel Washington was more of a screen actor, but he did TV first. Okay, some of us real Denzel fans know. Remember saying Elsewhere, he was in the hospital job. He was on TV, and then he made his way on the screen. It was quick. He did like one show on Broadway back in the 80s, but really took off in film. But a lot of people do Broadway first, and they get their feet wet, and then they move. But as the case with Brian Tyree Henry, he was a theater actor first. Then he was on TV, and Atlanta blew him up, he got a Emmy nomination for his performance in Atlanta. He got nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series for his role as Paperboy in Atlanta. So first it was a Tony, then it was an Emmy, and then the Oscar nomination was a couple years ago for Castaway. Or Causeway, or Causeway, something like that. But it was an indie film. But yes, he's got range. And yeah, he's got the range. And so, it's given EGOT, it's given down the road. He's already been Triple Crown acting nominee, but he's got to win something next couple of years. I feel like he's ripe for something. I feel like there's certain actors that you look at and you're like, they're bound to get an Oscar or get something soon. I feel like he's got it in him. He's going to get the right role. He's going to find himself up on the stage eventually. I feel that way about Timothée Chalamet. Like, Timothée Chalamet is going to get an Oscar in the next 5 years or so. Like, if he stay at the way he's going, he's going to hit something soon. There's just certain actors you can look at and you can just tell that they're in the right space. Their time is coming. Like Domingo Coleman Domingo. He's in that lane. He's in the hot spot right now where we gonna see he's gonna eventually nail that role. That's gonna get him the Oscar glory. We've seen that happen with Jessica Chastain. Like, I'm a big Jessica Chastain fan. She was just in a lot of roles and performances. I was like, eventually she's gonna strike that. She's gonna get that Oscar, and she did. So. It's just that moment. You see that ripeness when the actor is there. That was Jennifer Lawrence. Like, we saw for Jennifer Lawrence. It's like, okay, she's in a couple of these meaty roles. I'm thinking about her. I'm thinking about Christian Bale. Certain actors, where is Amy Adams' Oscar? That's another conversation for another day. But I just digress. Where is Amy Adams' Oscar? Okay, where is that Oscar? Where is that Oscar? But I digress. So yeah, Dope Thief is really, really good. Very different than what I thought it was going to be. A little bit of synopsis. It is a show that is set and filmed in Philadelphia. It is in Philly, y'all. They're in Philly. It's a Philly show. But it follows two guys who are like a duo that pretend to be like narcotics, drug busters or whatever, but they really aren't. But they steal drugs. They confiscate drugs, pretend that they are like a part of the drug, the drug squad team. But they're not. They're just regular folks. But they mask because they put the uniform on and they bust in, they spy, but they take the drugs, but they really get the money. So they kind of like Robin Hoods. They take the drugs off the streets, but they take money. But they have a situation where one drug bust goes wrong and a lot of things spiral out of control. It's good. It's good TV. I was impressed. I thought it was going to be like, oh, another drug crime show. Oh no, y'all. This has layers. And Brian Tyree Henry is great in the show. And there's some other great actors as well. Ving Rhames plays his father. Do I need to say anything more than that? It's a good show. I'll leave it at that. I went to the Philly Current party. Philly Current magazine had a party on the Mushaloo boat. Haven't been on a Mushaloo in a while. I was like, when was the last time I went to the Mushaloo? Oh, that's right. I went to the Mushaloo like 4 years ago. 4 years ago this summer because Mr. Johnson and I, we were having it was like an engagement party weekend. Both of our wedding parties threw our engagement party weekends during our wedding shower, which was 3 months before our wedding. It was like July 17th. And we had a weekend. So for our wedding preparation, we had a wedding shower in the summer. It was 3 months before the wedding. And that same weekend, since we had a lot of people coming out of town, we also used that weekend to have our bachelor parties or whatever. So we both had our respective bachelor parties. His party had his groomsmen, and I had my people do my party, and it was a really great time. So what we did that weekend is that we had the wedding shower that Saturday, and then that evening we had our bachelor parties, and then the next day we all got together and we had a brunch with the whole wedding party. So all of our wedding party people came together. We all had a brunch, and we had on a Mushaloo, and that was like the last time I've been on Mushaloo. Um, Outside of what just happened this past week. So I went to a media party. Philly Current is a local magazine, and our very own lit brother, Josh Eats Philly, was featured in the new issue. So I went there to support my lit brother, and it was a good time. And we got good friends. Kelly Mirbad, Laura was there. A lot of folks was there. Actually, it was a big ass party. But what I realized about boats and why I'm not really that often on boats, because there was an era where I was in going to a bunch of boat weddings. But I realized why I haven't been on a boat in a minute, or at least that boat, is because it was like, when you're by water, it gets a little chilly because you're not like on any ground, no heat radiation. And there is a science to this, but like water currents is cold. Like when you're by the water at night, especially when there's no sunlight, it gets a little chilly out there. And I was not prepared for that. But this is where I wear my iconic zebra print outfit. So that's that zebra print blazer you all saw. I had a lot of media appearances. I had an appearance on a couple of things I was doing that day. And so I was like, I need to really dress real snazzy. So I wore this zebra print blazer that I got like a year ago. And it was just so cute. It was just, I could wear it to everything. So even for my taping that I had for Piers Morgan when I was on a recent episode, we'll get to a little bit of that in a minute, but it was a great time to support my bestie. Other things this weekend, PABJ had our Women's History Month event brunch that was at Pipeline Philly, which was in Center City. Great show out. Everyone came through. Miss Dawn catered the event. It was a lovely brunch. We had two Black-owned businesses that were part of the mix. Miss Dawn's Catering, she had the brunch. I mean, we had shrimp and grits. We had chicken and waffles. We had a whole bagel stand. We had frittata, breakfast potatoes, sausage, and bacon, and we did the most. We did the absolute most. But it was fabulous, and it was great. It was over 50 Black women in media that came together, and it was inspired by this idea that I had. That Essence has their Black Women Holiday, Black Women on Hollywood event, and they've always been known for this event right around the Oscar season. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to do like a Black women in media event in Philly and bring Black women from all over different industries together to have this like celebratory brunch during Women's History Month. And so that's what we did, and it was fabulous. It was a great event. We had mimosas, and there was a perfume making station. It's a Black woman owned company called they make candles. They do candle making. And they also do perfume making. But we did perfume making because candles, it gets crazy with the candles, with the wax and everything all over the place. And we didn't want to make it too artsy and crafts, but it's called Cabaret Candles, Cabaret or Cabernet. Oh, Cabernet. It's called Cabernet Candles. Cabernet, Cabernet candles. And they are based in Jersey,
but they do, you can book them in Philly. They travel and they will come up and create a station. They're pretty reasonably priced for what they offer and what they do, but they bring scents and they bring, you bring a little station and you can make your own fragrances and scents. And, I did that. I got a scent made. And what I did was I use it to as a, because the scent is very floral, it's spring. So I didn't, do anything. It won't be a fragrance for myself per se, but you could if you wanted to. But what I'm using it for as a spray is for my furniture. So I'm going to spray my pillows and fabrics and things like that around the house with the scent. And it's a very floral scent that they had. It was like, I can't even describe. It's like a rosé champagne, suckleberry or whatever, but it was like a very fruity floral scent. And I got to pick the fragrances, but it's really cool. It's a Black woman owned business, and they also do candle making. So if you're looking for a company that you want to hire to do those type of activities, if you're having like a event or something, you want to mix it up a little bit, because that was the thing. Like last year when we did the event, we had flower making, but it was like it created like a little bit of a mess, like the wreaths and things. And so that's become a trend. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's also doing uh, they hire the woman that does the sketches where they can draw you and things. But I was like, what is an event that women would like that allows you to not make a mess, but also have fun, but also have something that's memorable and also something that's unique? And so the fragrance making station, which they don't make the fragrance. So they have the women at the station, they come and they set up and they just let you try the scents and pick out which one you want. And they have their own bottles that they made. They bring the bottles out and then they will create, you can tell them what scent you want, but you don't have to do the work yourself. So you're not the one pumping the different scents, but you get to smell different ones and pick out which one you want that's custom to you. And they will pour this stuff in the bottle. They will do everything for you. So I was really impressed with that. And it was something memorable and unique, but also something that wasn't messy and too much setup. The setup was very easy. They come with their own wheels and everything, and they do their own thing. And it's very efficient. And like I said, it was not that expensive. It was very reasonably priced for the group that we had. So I was very impressed with that. But definitely check them out. They're called Cabernet Candles, CABERNET Candles. And they're on Instagram. That's the best way to find them. They're on Instagram. Their Instagram handle is at Cabernet Candles. And their website is www.cabernetcandles.com. Cabernet Candles is it. But they make their candle and craft bar. They're based in Delaware, actually in Newcastle, but they travel everywhere for a bag. And you can see their various stations. They do candles, but they also do scents and fragrances as well. So I recommend you check it out and check out their page. It's really nice. The woman who owns it, she's great. She's an incredible business owner and very professional. She's done dinner and block events in Wilmington. She's also done wedding showers, bridal showers, all that stuff. So highly recommend them. So my Piers Morgan appearance. We talked about the new Snow White movie, which we're going to get to in a minute. We're going to talk more about that later in the show. I'm going to do a review of the show. But we talked about the Snow White film. They really wanted to hate this movie. And, look, the box office for it, was soft. But we'll talk about the movie itself. A lot of conservatives gave a lot of smoke to the film because it was too quote unquote progressive and blah, 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 blah. But I have a different take about what I thought about the film. And I think it's good. I think it has the potential to be a sleeper hit potentially. But we talked about it on Piers Morgan's show. He just loves having me on. And I love coming on because, hey, the checks be clearing. Okay. The checks be clearing. And, every time I'm on there, we love to talk about the book, okay? The Case for Cancel Culture. We're gonna promote that book. So it's always a pleasure to be on the show, and especially with the ones I'm on the show with. I'm on the show with Esther, who's the Black British woman who reminds me of Candace Owens, and then I'm on there with the rest of the two. There's these two YouTube personalities. They're just those guys are just a mess. But people like them though. They're like YouTube personalities, but people really like them. They're just Nostradamus. I forget what his name is, but it's like um they're called I want to make sure I name them correctly because people be going in. So Nerdrotic is his name. And then Will Jordan, who's called himself the critical drinker. Yeah, those two guys. They're quite interesting. Um, but yeah, here we are. But yeah. So this interesting thing I want to share. This is a full circle moment. So this week I went to an event. Mr. Johnson and I went to a mixer for um, the Penn Gay Alumni Association, gay and lesbian. It's called Gala. It's like the Penn Gay and Lesbian Alumni Association. Um, they had a mixer at the Pyramid Club, and I haven't been to the Pyramid Club. I've been on and off in recent years, but 10 years ago, around this time, I had gotten scammed by a woman who is no longer alive, actually, which is it's kind of like but she scammed me. She was the publisher of a startup publication. I've told this story many times on this podcast, but she was at the Pyramid Club, and her office was her workspace was there. And this is before the Pyramid Club. I mean, Pyramid Club has been around for a long time, but this was like my first like major visibility in the Philadelphia like downtown center city scene. And this was 10 years ago. And some of my close friends remember this era. Dr. Parks, remember well. We had a launch party there, everything. And basically what happened was she ran up the credit at the Pyramid Club and pretty much got kicked out because, she, wanted to throw events and things. And she was just not a good person. And so I worked there. I was working for the publication. We had workspace there. And so I was there all the time back then. And when that happened, I was so embarrassed by just the scammery of it all. I hadn't came back to Pyramid Club since. I've come back for a couple events in recent years, but I just never I always felt like a level of awkwardness and whatnot. But went to this mixer event there, because I knew it was newly renovated, and was in there just talking, and somebody recognized me, because people be knowing, and it was like, "You're Ernest Owens? Oh my goodness! Like, wow, we're so happy to be here." And I talked to the program um, coordinator, membership chair, who was just there, just kind of there to recruit people and things, and they offered me a membership. They were really just wanted me to was surprised. They knew my growth and professionally, whatever, but they offered me a membership, and so now I'm a member of the Pyramid Club, surprisingly. um and that was it was just, I just was like, what, but they were just like, yeah, we definitely would love you to come and invite friends and things of that nature. And so I was like, wow, okay. Didn't think I was gonna came as a guest, walked out as a member. So yeah, I know some. I've been there as a guest for other friends who are members in recent years, but yeah, I never I never saw myself being a member or even being invited or in this kind of cool way. So it was pretty dope. What I would tell you is that if you would like to be a member, they are doing some really cool special deals and invitations and things of that nature. And they were shocked that I wasn't a member of the Fiddler Club, which I have a very complicated relationship with the Fiddler Club. I'm going to spill that tea today since I'll share that. But if you're interested in being a member of the Pyramid Club, I will tell you they have some really great rates and opportunities right now, and very affordable and very reasonable for people who are interested. I can referral you, and there are great opportunities, and you will quite enjoy it if you're interested. It now more than ever, if you're trying to socialize, they're doing some great things there. And look at me sound like a marketer, but like, hey, I'm just being real. I think that a lot of people who are interested in joining these types of clubs, a lot of times what intimidates people is affordability, accessibility, all those things. I think that the Pyramid Club is, in my opinion, one of the more reasonably priced, accessible clubs in this city, and also the benefits and the perks expand beyond just Philadelphia alone. And also, I think it's a great place for people who are trying to network and build a nice space and place to be able to socialize, and connect with different folks, but also be able to do so at a reasonable rate in space. I know what my purpose would be at the Pyramid Club and why I would go. Definitely think that the Lit Brothers and I could be having tons of happy hours there every month, just to get together and just have our mixer. I'm also looking for a space to just have business lunches and things with different people in a space that is not where everybody and their mother is at, but also a place that is reasonably in the city, but also flexible. So I love that. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, and so if you're interested, DM me, like hit up my DMs. I will tell you more about it and give you some great information, and give you my little cool little perk as a ambassador for the club. But if you're interested, hit my DMs about Pyramid Club for sure. And it's like I said, you'll be surprised. Now, let me tell you about Fiddler Club. I have a really complicated relationship with the Fiddler Club. I go often as a guest of friends who are there, but I do think that the price does not justify the means, in my opinion. They got a bowling alley, they got a gym, they got all these little things. But the thing about Fiddler Club is that it's ridiculous. Like, I think that they call themselves, they used to call themselves the Union League for Millennials, but that was ridiculous within itself if you think about it. So let me tell you about the Fiddler Club. It is $5,000 for an initiation fee. The initiation fee is $5,000. Let me just start off with that. $5,000 initiation fee. Let's just, $5,000 initiation fee. Then, outside of the $5,000 initiation fee, you have to pay over $575 a month in monthly dues. Yeah, over $500 a month in monthly dues. Just dues. And then there is a minimum $75 food and beverage that you have to pay, that you have to also contribute to. So you're basically paying around $650 a month. Now, let me also add that $575 that you're paying a month is not a credit that you can use for food and beverage or anything. That's just what you got to pay a month just to be a member. In addition to a $5,000 one-time initiation fee. Now look, could I pay for that? Could I afford that? Could I do that? I could. But then the question becomes, why would I? To be clear, that is crazy. In this economy, in this day and age, ridiculous. I will tell you that going to both of the clubs, I think Fiddler Club is definitely got a lot of different types of amenities and some cool things. I just don't think it's worth it. I could never pay what would be nearly my rent. Used to be my, like, I paid $450 a month in rent when I first graduated from college. I would never pay that, a monthly rent. Like, I mean, granted, how much I pay a month in rent is different now, but just the thought of like paying that much money a month to maintain a membership in a club where you're just going there potentially to workspace. That doesn't include food. That doesn't include drink. That just include your access to work there and go to some events. But like, that's crazy. That's crazy to spend that much and you're not getting bang for your buck. What I will tell you is that the Pyramid Club, there is a monthly fee, but it's nowhere near that much money. But the gag is that money is a monthly fee, but that is converted as a food and beverage credit. So what I'm saying is that the money you spend monthly is it is converted into the food and beverage credit. So you're technically you're paying your upkeep to maintain a member is just going there to buy food and drink, which is reasonable versus a separate fee or due price. Fiddler Club does not provide that. Just saying, just as a selling point. Like what you're spending that $500 something a month, in addition to you also having to spend an additional $75 in food and drink separately, that's $650 that you have to spend a month. That's ridiculous. In addition to a $5,000 initiation fee. Yeah, I'll just tell you for starters that the initiation fee to join a pyramid club is less than $250. Less. Just saying. So if you're interested, hit me up. I'll refer you. You could be my referral. And I will tell you more great details about it. And this is Ernestly Speaking exclusive. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because people will often hit me up and say, what's these different rates? What's this stuff? I listen, no. Filler Club, I will just be a plus. But everybody and their mother's there too. And I'm also going to be the type of people where I don't know. I mean, I don't know like if I would benefit from going somewhere where I'm going to always see. Like, honestly, if you're somebody who goes to a lot of business, professional events, and networking events, you're pretty much going to see the same crew and same crowd at other events. And maybe that's a first world problem for someone like me that's a socialite in this regard. But like, yeah, I'm just saying. If you want to be a member of a club and you want to get workspace and all that kind of cool stuff, we could just do your thing and have that lounginess and that flexibility. There are better places to do it at, y'all, that does not charge you that much craziness. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that out there. Just my little shameless plug. Just saying. Just saying. So, moving on to other topics, hot topics, because we got a lot to catch up on, a lot of tea to be spilled. So, this week, the White House, once again, is showing its ass. And I could pretend that I'm surprised. I could pretend I'm surprised. I could. Or I could just tell you, But here's the thing. There's a lot of flip-flopping going on right now in the White House. There's a lot of, there's some messaging that's off, right? There's attempts to switch, the courts are consistently backtracking. Every time you turn around, there is a lot of different changes happening. The judges are reversing things left and right. One moment they're saying, you can do something, you can't do something. With DOGE, the new leader is apparently Steve Davis. It's not Elon Musk. Roles keep changing. And what I want people to understand is now is not the time to panic. Now, there is some concerns, but there are some things that we need to be clear about. So, yes, the president has signed an executive order that is basically seeking to pretty much, cut the Department of Education. The problem is that is a congressional move. That Congress has to do that. And that is not necessarily, just because the Department of Education as a body exists, there's a lot of things that will not be cut automatically. So to be very clear, the Department of Education is a holding spot in space. It's been around for roughly 45 years. The Department of Education facilitates a lot of resources that impact people that's going to college, Title IX, anti-discrimination policies and things for students and people, programs and benefits people that are impoverished, in education, all these different things, Pell Grants, you name it, right? But a lot of these initiatives are funded by Congress. So even though the Department of Education may, quote unquote, they got a work staff that's only like 4,400 people. It is a very small department. It does not have that many employees. So if you're saying you want to cut it for efficiency and cost cutting, it's not going to really shake much, to be honest, right? But let's say, for example, that there is no Department of Education. First of all, the executive order is the threat of that. The people that will have to actually go through with that and follow through on that is Congress. Here's the thing. I don't think Congress is going to actually do this. And if they were to just, let's say we're going to dismantle the Department of Education, the funding programs, all the things, the Pell Grants, all these different student loan things and all that, that will still exist because those programs are not necessarily like they were within the Department of Education, but Congress funds them. So Congress would have to stop the funding. See, I need you all to understand how the three branches of government work: the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. Right? All of these things have different purposes, right? And we get caught up in this where we ignore all of the powers that be. We ignore a lot of these practices, right? The legislative branch is Congress, the judicial branch is Supreme Court, and the executive is the president. All of these three branches, we'll get to what happens when we are in a constitutional crisis. We are not in a constitutional crisis yet, okay? There's checks and balances. So, yes, the president, the executive branch can say, look, I'm going to write an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. He can say that, okay? But Congress, right, the legislative branch, has to actually go through and follow through on doing that. And the reality is, it's more complicated than people think, because the Department of Education is broken up in several different programs that's funded by Congress, essentially. There are some oversight and some other things that will be impacted, but a lot of these little programs are funded. So piece by piece, the Congress would have to decide what they want to defund and not fund. That is where accountability and the biting spot hits, because Congress people, if you are a congressional member, you have to go back to your district and say, I voted against Pell Grants. Do you think that's going to land well with folks? Like, this is not a black issue, a white issue, this is all Americans. Do you think that telling people that you're going to cut funding for Pell Grants and the college affordability, right? Okay, you don't want to kill student loans, okay, fine. But you're now going to cut affordability for college and universities, for working class people, poor people. You're going to impact programs where these grants that support in like not just public education. You're going to scale back on public education in impoverished neighborhoods. Let's be clear, that does not just impact the black and brown community. See, the racism got people forgetting that poverty is not just impacting black and brown communities. See, the racism got them forgetting y'all poor too, white folks. A lot of rural areas, a lot of white people live in impoverished neighborhoods, y'all. Poverty is not a black and brown issue. Okay, there's a disproportionate, but let's be clear. There's only less than 10% of the population is black, okay? Everybody racism got y'all thinking, because y'all following racist white rich people, right? Rich white people got y'all thinking that the only people that get things or benefiting is poor black and brown people. That's just not true. Population-wise, it's not true. We do not take over and run everything. Yes, our presence is loud and very influential, but we do not hold this immense level of wealth and capital that is going to move the pendulum. So you all are cutting all these fucking programs. You're literally cutting your nose to spite your face. Like, you're the ones who are going to suffer the most from all of this shit. And I know that rural people are actually seeing it, because look at the VA, right? These cuts is impacting the VA. These benefits is impacting a lot of these communities. These are the people that voted for you Republicans in Congress. And I don't think congressional folks are going to be that quick to say this, right? They want to support Trump, but low key, there's going to be some checks and balances here. So one big thing that people have not paid attention to that is really big, okay, that no one's talking enough about when it comes to the Department of Education. We're talking about college affordability, but let's also consider that public service jobs, right? There is a special grant renewal. Like, if you work in a public service, if you're a firefighter, a police officer, the military, you work in any type of civil service work or jobs, right? Government jobs or whatever, right? Which historically do not pay people really competitive salaries. But one of the benefits for working in government is that, or government or any of these service jobs, right, is that if you work there for 10 years, right, and you're honoring your student loans and you're doing what you're supposed to do, your debt is forgiven after 10 years. if you work. So, during the Biden administration, a lot of student loan forgiveness was granted, immediately given to people who had proof that they worked in a nonprofit space, the public service space for a certain number of years. Their loans got forgiven for their services. Technically, with this whole Department of Education, there's a possibility that if they dismantle that, then a program like that gets killed. Also, a program like that gets killed. So you mean to tell me that public servants, staffers that work for the government, that firefighters, police officers, all these people that's doing a military, all these people that's working these service jobs, you're telling me that now they will not get loan forgiveness now their loans won't be, cleared if they serve for a number of time? Do you think that that's going to fly with voters? See, people are too busy just panicking. Fucking read, liberals. And I'm really talking about the progressives, because I'm getting sick of college-educated people that every time Trump do something, y'all just give up your hands and give up. Are y'all not reading? Is anyone reading? Is anyone actually breaking down this shit? I'm sick of the doom scrolling on social media. Like, fucking think. Yes, this president keeps signing executive orders that are stupid. Yes, he do. But I need y'all to understand that if you're going to cry over the Department of Education, are we educated enough to understand what the Department of Education is, what it do, and how it works? Do we actually know how this shit functions? Because y'all showing how much y'all don't even know. Y'all cry over stuff that do y'all actually know what y'all crying over? Do you actually know how they function and work? Because if you did, then you will understand how hard it is. If it was so easy for presidents to just kill shit like that, why haven't Biden did it then? Or Obama or any? It takes a lot of piecemeal work. Government is so incremental. This this is what I need y'all to understand. Is it that you all don't know how government works? Or y'all don't know how the presidency works? Or is it both? I'm convinced at this point, as a person who covers government on a regular basis, I am convinced that neither the American public nor this president understands how government works. And you all's reactionary crying and bickering and panicking and shit, this is crazy. The president does not know how the government works. Yes, President Trump does not understand his power. He does not understand how government works. He does not understand how a snap of a wrist does not mean. He's trying to dictate in a system that does not dictate that way. Government and bureaucracy is so meticulous that it is nearly impossible to just kill things in a snap of a fist. That is not how government works yet. It is not where we are currently. And that is just not how it works. And so if you pay attention, Trump has actually been doing this little, I'm going to ban this, I'm going to stop this. And you know what's happening? People are just automatically reacting to these threats. They're just automatically reacting. And I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about everybody else. Companies and nonprofits are just showing their asses. Colleges and universities are showing their asses based off of how Trump is acting. Okay? Trump is like threatening things and getting what he wants. And let me be real with you. Don't believe these colleges, like to see Columbia succeed to Trump's demands. That is by fucking design. They don't have courage because they don't want to fight. They could push back at Trump on some of this stuff and they would not lose as much money as they think they would lose. The problem is that low key, they don't agree with some of this shit either. Columbia supporting Trump on these demands is because Columbia was already in bed with these decisions anyway. They were already prosecuting Palestinian protesters and student activists. They were already wanting to clamp down on activism on their campuses. So, of course, they're going to support Trump's initiatives because now they can blame Trump for doing the shit they want to do fucking anyway. Let's be clear. Penn has been going in its flop era for quite some time. What they did to Liz McGill, the former president there, was absurdine, okay? It was disgusting. But that was what they were already doing. If you look at who their board of directors are, they already have Trumpers already operating within the Penn stratosphere. So for them to, so this whole idea of like, is Penn going to cower to Trump? They wanted to do this already, y'all. They've been wanting to do this. They already want to do it. And so they're using Trump as an excuse to do what they already wanted to do. These are capitalistic institutions. Do not act like they're performative. They're performative. There's no money to be made. Woke is quote unquote going to make people broke. And so the capitalism of it all is why they're doing this. They've been wanting to do this. This is not Trump. Like, Trump is the catalyst, or is he? No, he's not the catalyst. He's a scapegoat. Okay? The catalyst is their own personal investors. The catalyst is these donors. These Ivy League institutions are set up in a fucked up way because it's always been what the donors wanted. If you got racist, bigoted donors, the donors dictate the future of the university. It's just that the donors align with Trump. Now that Trump is in office, they now have an opportunity. The same people that's donating to Trump are the same people that's donating to these fucking Ivy League institutions. And so you all are, stay woke. Stay woke. Even if it make people think they're going to go broke, stay woke. Because I see what's going on here. I've been caught this shit. What's happening is that racist donors, conservative rich donors, the ultra mega rich billionaires and multimillionaires that have been funding these colleges and institutions, they've been wanting these colleges to scale back, and they've been wanting to be discriminatory. But the problem is they were serving under administrations that did not allow them to do that. And also, it was not socially accepted and normalized in our society to do the shit that they were doing without backlash. Now that Trump is the president, now he has normalized bigotry in a way that now it does not feel super controversial to say, well, do we have to have, do we have to have a DEI program? Now they've normalized it. And so now that they've normalized it, now it's given everybody to go to. Amazon is scaling back. All these corporations are scaling back on DEI. And Trump is threatening them, right? But Trump can't legally do a lot of this shit that he's threatening, right? But the mere threat of it allows them to make the excuse, Trump says he's going to do this, we have to make big decisions. But to be honest with you all, Trump cannot take all of that money from Columbia. He can't take that money from Penn like that. It will be a whole tedious process to do it. And do y'all think that Trump is going to really give a fuck to do it? No. But the mere threat allows him to scare them, to scare the donors. Because what happens is the donors and the board will then force a vote to then make a decision. Come on. This is why you listen to Ernestly speaking. See, the rest of these other people gonna get y'all panicking and scary. I get it. They want to panic y'all. They want to scare y'all. I know what they're doing, okay? I know what they're doing. Okay? I see what's happening. I want y'all to pay close attention to what I'm telling you all. I want y'all to really understand this because there's too much fear-mongering going on and I'm sick of it. Pay attention. Before Trump was elected at Penn, right? We had the situation with the threats of anti-Semitism because of the pro-Palestinian protests, all this stuff. I feel like that situation was blown out of proportion for very biased political reasons. However, the donors at Penn largely had a very anti-Palestinian sentiment for various reasons. We don't want to get into that. They had a very biased sentiment, okay? And they had a lot of money. And that money and the public sentiment towards the anti-Palestinian movement within the protest scenes on college campuses, particularly very big, prestigious Ivy League institutions that get millions upon millions of dollars from wealthy donors. Those donors had a political bias, and they threatened to withhold their money based on it. At that point, when you threaten to withhold money in a certain way, that triggers a response to who? The Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, who sits on those boards, right? That puts pressure on them to have to move because the Board of Trustees and the president have to respond to what the donors want. The donors run this, okay? And a lot of these donors are showing themselves. They're taking off their white hoods and revealing themselves. Those donors are donors that donate to people like Trump and conservative institutions. And at one point in time, it was okay, right, that there was no real political divisive moment happening. But that was a moment where they said, you know what? We want to change some things. And that was how they forced Liz McGill out. That is how they was able to dictate the way in which the academics on Penn's campus were. Let's look at Columbia. Same story in Columbia. Donors in Colombia wasn't feeling it either. Certain donors was not feeling some type of way. All of this shit was connected to politics. Those donors used congressional politics to play with the conservative majority held Congress. They said, look, we need y'all to call hearings. Put some fear. Scare the fuck out of these schools to do what they need to do. And that's how they forced Liz out. That's how they forced certain people out, because they was able to weaponize their money to influence Congress and politics and also the boards. So now we got Trump in office. That money fueled Trump's election to win. The donors want to guarantee that certain things are not taking place on college campuses. And now it is not above them to threaten the very schools they fund and have equity in to make them move the way they want them to move. This was already the plan long before Trump got to office. So now Trump has the bully pulpit to threaten, make certain threats. Any threat that Trump makes, because he's the president of the United States, has to be taken seriously, which means that anytime he makes these threats and it gets national news, then everyone goes, oh shit, we gotta respond, we gotta do something. They're forcing the hand of the donors, which the donors then trigger the board of trustees, and the board of trustees then concede. And what happens on the Ivy League level then begins to implement and influence what happens for other colleges. So Trump isn't necessarily doing anything. He's getting his way based on just threatening folks. So if a school fought the fuck back, if they actually fought back, if they actually said, no, fuck out of here, then what happens? The donors would have to force their hand to pull the money themselves. The issue is that the donors, that's risky. Because if you threaten to pull your money when a university stands against Trump, the backlash to these donors will go heavy. So they really want to put pressure on those board of trustees, because the donors don't want to have to be the one to do it, because it will get weird. It will get really weird if Penn and the board of trustees clamp back at the donors and say, listen, we're not going down without a fight. But we've seen this happen. We've seen the donors threaten to pull out. But it's funny because it's interesting that donors are that's how you know the political intentions of the donors. Because if the donors were on the right side of history, then wouldn't they double down to protect the university, these universities amidst what Trump is trying to do? But look at what Trump is trying to do. They're okay with that. They're okay with cutting DEI. They're okay with fucking with Title IX, because that's their own personal agendas as well. The agendas align. The donors' agendas align with the Trump administration. We're not hearing any progressive donors or any donors say, we're going to pull out. Who holds the most of that money? It's aligning. And that's how I know that Trump's power and his threats are only being backed by other forces beyond just himself. If it was just Trump, then I could see the universities pushing back a little bit. But the call is coming from inside the house is what I'm trying to tell y'all. So it's easy to look at Trump and say it's Trump's fault. No, Trump is the chess piece to a larger board that's been trying to do this for a long time. See what I'm saying? So then the question becomes, what's next? What I can tell you is, outside of what's going on with the Columbias and colleges, I have a little bit more optimism when it comes to this federal shit. So yes, private institutions and colleges are fucked slightly with some of this stuff going on with policies. Another interesting aspect I think people are not thinking about and talking about is the conversations around companies, right? Like companies cutting back on DEI. The interesting thing is that if you pay attention to the go back to workforce thing, right? Amazon was the first major company to really force workers to go back to work for 5 days a week, the return to work policy. Amazon and Jeff Bezos, you see they're in bed with Trump, right? Jeff Bezos is in bed with Trump, which means that these major companies that are in bed with Trump for their own purposes, they are literally following his agenda to then try to normalize it for federal workers and everyone else. So we're seeing a trend where if the big companies do it, that makes everyone feel like, okay, we're going to set the norm. Let's be clear. All these companies have been wanting to go back to work. When federal government set the trend to do it, then that then triggered Amazon to justify it, right? But they're using these federal policies as a scapegoat to justify doing it. They don't have to fucking do it. They want to do it. And to be honest, they're forcing it in an aggressive way. There's a term that people are saying about they're called secret layoffs, like work layoff. Like it's like basically the attempt is that they don't want to do layoffs even though their companies might be financially hit, right? A lot of these companies do layoffs. Like they can't afford it. They're not making money. The economy is a mess. We might have a recession. We don't know what the fuck is going on, right? Rather than actually lay off people to present itself as, oh my God, our companies are not doing well. Because anytime you say you have to have layoffs, it can impact the stock, right? Because then people say, oh, if there's layoffs, it means the company's not doing too good. But if they force a, mandatory return to work policy and they're dead ass on it, then what that means is that people who want to leave, let's say a company says, you know what, we're going to leave, we're going to quit, blah, 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 blah. Let's just say a company decides to do that. If a company does that, then what that means is that companies, employees that don't want to go back to work like that will quit. So there will be people that will just naturally quit, which means you don't have to trigger a layoff because now there are going to be people that's going to naturally just leave. So if you do the return to work policy, there's going to be some employees that's going to say, you know what, I'm better than this. Let me just quit because I don't want to go back to work, right? So you're going to see with Amazon, a company that big, everybody's not going to return to work. There's going to be somebody that's just going to quit, which means that will allow them not to have to necessarily do layoffs because there are people who are just going to naturally quit. So maybe there's enough people that's going to quit that will not have them trigger a layoff to have to show anything. A lot of companies are forcing the return to work policy for those very reasons. And now there's new trends called coffee badging, which I just heard about. And again, I'm not a traditional employee. I don't work, I'm a boss. I work for myself. So I don't really work, any workspace. And so I'm reading this and looking this up. So apparently coffee badging is this thing that now, because of these return to work policies, people are like swiping in, like badging in to go into the office. They go to the office, they'll drink some coffee, they'll take a couple of meetings. And then by the time it's lunchtime, they slide up and they don't come back to the office. They just kind of slide. So apparently data is showing that like 70% of people who are doing this coffee badging thing, this is a phenomenon. A lot of people are coffee badging apparently, where they show up, they badge in, they sign in, they clock in, but then they slide right back out, half day, midday. So they don't spend all their time in office. Apparently companies are trying to find ways to clap back on that and monitor that kind of stuff and create penalties and threaten things and shit. So it is reducing, but there is some companies there's some employees that's getting away with it. But like all of this hybrid remote work shit, that is the new way that they can threaten, basically telling people, look, if you don't like this policy, there's other companies that you can go to. In other words, if you don't come back to work and return to work like we tell you to, then you're going to get fired. So they're trying to cut back on the hybrid. And this is partially because of the real estate situation. A lot of these downtown areas, right, is dying. Like the culture is dying. I mean, look at the mayor of Philadelphia. Like Cheryl Parker has a return to work policy. She's making all these employees come back to work. Every city employee, all these people are going to have to come back to work 5 days a week and everything. No more hybrid, no more whatever. And that's because this is going to help the city economy. Because if you're downtown, you're more likely to spend money downtown, parking meters, going downtown to get you a bagel, some coffee or whatever. Like you're going to help the local economy. And so the reality is that this is an economic decision. Money is the root of all evil. It always goes back to coffee, goes back to coffee. It always goes back to capitalism and money. And so this is a scheme. This is all a scheme. So companies that are forcing this, they're cutting back the DEI programs because that's an expense that they can reprioritize. They was only doing it in response to the racial uprisings. So now that the government is cutting back and threatening this DEI shit, that allows these companies, listen, I'm going to tell you, I don't even want to call this a conspiracy theory because I don't even think it's a conspiracy theory. I think that a lot of top CEOs of major companies and corporations have met with this administration, met with this president, and they came to some negotiations and deals on what they want to cut and what they don't want to cut. And I think that there was a plan in place to say, you know what are some cost-effective cut measures that we can do, one, to be able to justify certain things that we want to do to grow. And I think cutting DEI was something all these companies wanted to do. I think a lot of low-key was never in favor of diversity, equity, inclusion. I think they wanted to hire their white friends. I think that they wanted to control their workforce. I think they wanted to scale back on dropping money. I think they think it's a waste of money. I think they don't want to invest in it because they would rather put the money in other things, like, I don't know, giving their employees raises or giving themselves personal, salary hikes or whatever. I think a lot of these companies just did not want to do this anyway. And that Trump said, let me be the bad guy, which he is already the bad guy, but I'll be the bad guy to do what you all don't want to do to save face. Yeah, I think there's something more. This is happening too meticulous. This is happening too fast for me to believe that, because it's like, you mean to tell me that there's no backbone, there's nobody trying to challenge shit in the courts? There's some agencies and places that are, but like, isn't it just weird to you all, like, how quickly people are just bending to this? Nah, and to be honest, just without no actual threat. Like, I mean, okay, he says he's going to do this, and y'all just don't go, is this legally sound? Can the president really do that? I mean, like, because he really can't just do it. There is a legal procedure. There is courts. There is branches. But he doesn't even have to go through that to do that, because people are just surrendering automatically. Which tells you this is what they kind of always wanted to do anyway. Stay woke on it. Now, back to Congress. And why I'm optimistic, and why I don't think this is going to have the same negative effect. I personally think that because these programs under the Department of Education, specifically, I'm talking about them right now, are things that directly benefit everyday people, and because of the fact that Congress people will have to decide on this, they're going to be a little bit more strategic about how they move. Because if you're somebody that vote against cutting Pell Grants, you're going to have to go back to your districts and your town halls, and you're going to have to explain to them why you thought it made sense to cut their ability to afford college. You're going to have to explain to them why the loan forgiveness programs that they're currently in, that kept them as a job, as a firefighter, police officer, that you're going to basically de-incentivize people from working in public service jobs. Like, you're cutting a perk and a benefit of service workers, police officers, firefighters, teachers, all these individuals. You're basically telling them that you're going to cut an incentive that is part of the reason why people even get those jobs. Like, let me be clear. Teachers love to teach, right? Firefighters love to do this work. People love to serve in the military, some folks, right? That was a major incentive for why people did it. I know I have family members who were in the military, who served who are in the Army. Part of the reason why a lot of folks, like my stepfather, he joined the Army because it was a way for him to afford college. He went to the University of Maryland. If he knew, he's been out now, he's gotten his benefits and stuff now. But let's say that he was currently, that was his situation now. If you would have told him that the government was going to cut a program that was not going to pay for his college education while serving this country, he would have probably not joined. Because part of the reason why the military, like, we look at when they go and they set up the career fairs, they want to recruit people for the military. That is one of the number one talking points that they use to recruit people to join the military and the Army. Want to go to college? The Army can pay for that. That was the number one incentive. Like, that was one of the top things they would tell kids in high schools. Like, when I was in high school, I never wanted to join the military or the Army because, I was gay. Don't ask, don't tell. Look, I knew, right? What it was given back this is back in the day, right? The world is different now, but they want to cancel trans people from serving the military now. So, I mean, I guess. But I remember at that time, that there was a lot of talk about it. And I remember when I was younger, going to the high school career fairs when they were trying to recruit people, because it was like college, like they would always have a college fair, but the college fair would always have jobs that were like not college related, but college quote unquote adjacent. So police officer, firefighter, Teach for America, like they had these other types of other career fair jobs, but most of them were college related. So I remember I walked by the Army booth, and the person came up to me and was like, "Are you interested in serving your country?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to go to college." "Oh well, we'll pay for your college. How are you paying for college?" And I was like, scholarships, but you got a full ride. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I had a full ride. And they were like, "Well, if you join the military, if you join the Army, if you serve, anything, you can get college loan forgiveness, blah 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 blah." I mean, this man was selling me this, and I didn't even know this. I mean, I was not interested, but I was seeing people, and I was like, wow, could you imagine if you're somebody who was not necessarily gifted and talented? You didn't have scholarships, but you wanted to go to college. This was the way for people who were not necessarily, quote unquote, the brightest students in high school, but still wanted to have the opportunity to get college education paid for. This was that opportunity. And that's why you see a lot of times the Army and the military go to the hoods, go to the neighborhoods that are, lower income, because that was how they was recruiting people. I have thoughts on that. We won't get into it on this episode, but that was the way that they recruit people. So it's a lot of nuance here. And so I can't see Congress cutting a lot of these programs now that even if the Department of Education is dismantled. Yes, there's no Department of Education, but a lot of those programs that was funded through the Department of Education, those programs will still exist. And even if they're not in the Department of Education, they still exist. And the only way they will not exist is if Congress individually, piece by piece, decide to kill those programs. I am confident that Congress is not going to do that. Because Congress does not want this ball in their hands. Because unlike the donors and the board of trustees, the Trump scapegoat is not going to fly for Congress. It's not. Because the districts elect Congress. And let's be clear, Trump's influence is not going to procure people staying reelected in their districts, especially if he's pushing policies that's going to hurt people in their districts. So in other words, I want people to understand. Stay in the fucking line. Don't give up. I know shit is crazy, but it has not gotten that crazy. There is still checks and balances. We still have a republic, and we can still keep it for some level. Trump is doing a lot of things that he is not even realizing is stupid. I just think he's just trying to appease certain folks. But at a certain point, that small core group of people does not represent the will of the majority and of the public. People do not want to see their VA benefits go down the wash. People do not want to see Pell Grants and all this financial aid support and all these opportunities and incentives for service workers and volunteers and firefighters and all these folks go down the drain. There are some people who do, but that is not the majority. I don't believe the majority of Americans want to see all these types of benefits go down the wash. Because I keep telling people keep saying, well, everybody's not going to college. And what did I say on Tommy Lauren's show a couple of weeks ago? College educated people who are in these small towns that have good paying jobs and got benefits and resources, that money is trickling down to mama who is, mama, grandma and Uncle Joe and all these people that cannot afford it. Yeah, they didn't go to college, but do you think that they literally hate college educated people? No. Because I keep telling people the J.D. Vance analogy. J.D. Vance is a byproduct of all of this financial aid and benefits. J.D. Vance had a grandma, right? Mama, right? J.D. Vance going to Yale Law School, right? To get resources and to get that education. When that man got that money, he was giving money to his mother who was strung out on drugs. He was helping his grandmother who did not have certain benefits, right? They benefited from a child that went to an Ivy League school. That is why there's a lot of hypocrisy here. Yes, Trump came from money, but J.D. Vance didn't. And so a lot of people that are coming from these Appalachian areas, yes, they may not have come from that education, that money, but they got family members who went to these schools. They got family members who went to these colleges and these spaces that got money, and they get some of that money. So y'all got to understand there's nuance here, right? That I don't think there is this real divide of college educated people that just are rich and amongst themselves, and that the rest of the country is poor and broke. There is some nuances here. A lot of families in America have college educated relatives. And a lot of those college educated relatives are giving them money. That's the person that they ask money. When you think about the movie Soul Food, for those who, know that iconic film, this past week, the incredible Vanessa Williams, who played, Terry Joseph in the film. Auntie, Terry, okay? Auntie Terry was the one that bailed out family members, right? Bailed out Bird, paid for his legal fees, right? They weren't college educated in that family, but they knew that Terry was, right? And she was the one who had to give money and pay for haircuts and pay for stuff, help the family out. So we're not considering the Auntie Terrys and the J.D. Vances before he became a mess of the world. Like, we're not considering that these are major players in these families that help them stay funded. You cut those opportunities, you won't see another Auntie Terry or Big Brother Ernest, right? Like, or you don't see that pipeline happen. So this is a more complicated situation. See, you all get caught up in these very crazy Republican talking points, but when you really break down the financial impropriety and the misunderstanding of this, only a billionaire, only a person who was fed a silver spoon could make policies like this. Joe Biden could never do that. Hell, not even Obama, right? None of them could make these cases. I would argue the Democrats are more of the working class than we give them credit, because look at our past presidents that were Republicans. Trump, billionaire, came from money. George W. Bush, he is the son of a president. The president before that, the Republican president before that, was George Herbert Walker Bush. He was a vice president. Came from money. Who was before him? Reagan, Hollywood movie star. So if you really think about the relativity, look at the people of the working class. Bill Clinton came from modest upbringings. Obama, Biden. So when you really think about the dynamics of being able to be related to this stuff, this was a party that was supposed to be the face of the blue collar workers. Something has happened. But because people are not telling their full stories, we only talk about what happens after they get the degree. We don't talk about what they had to do to get the degree, and we don't even talk about what they had to do when they was living before they became who they are today. There is a missing narrative around financial aid, college, money, equity, access that's missing in this conversation. And I think there's too much broad stroke narratives of, liberals or college educated, live on the East Coast, and they don't understand how to relate to everyday people. That's just not true. Look, I live on the East Coast now. I went to Ivy League. But let me be very clear. As a Black educated person that have money, I've given money to family. I'm expected to support. I've loaned money to folks and different cousins and people and done different things. Like, there is a connection there. It's just like y'all think like the money just goes away. No. It's the way in which families sustain. There's a whole connection there. A lot of the Black folks I know that got Ivy degrees, a lot of them don't have family that they can borrow money from. They're the ones loaning money to family members. They're the ones still supporting, siblings and things like that. We're not talking about that enough, because I don't think people expected for there to be so much ignorance around this topic that they would actually see people having these kind of conversations about cutting resources and things. So I'm encouraging people, think outside the box. Wake up, use your noggin, use your logic, use your head. It's not that crazy, So, just a food for thought. So now, there's somebody who's been showing their ass for a bit of time, and this is in media. What is going on with Gavin Newsom? This podcast that Gavin Newsom has had lately, it's been a shit show. He is the epitome of a sellout. I've been listening to some of his podcast episodes. He's had Steve Bannon. He's had Charlie Kirk. He's bringing all the damn incels on his show. And it's this narrative he's trying to have. And see, this is what white people do. This is what white people do. This, we need to find common ground people don't agree with. Dude, this man is becoming a whole asswipe for the far fucking right. I mean, he's entertaining the trans ban nonsense with the trans women play. It's almost unfair. He's claiming he's never used the word Latinx. Like, this is just lingo he doesn't get. Even though there's been a lot of reports that have shown that he's been lying about that. He's been using Latinx. He has used Latinx before. But he tried to claim he doesn't know what this means and his staff uses it. Dude, that's a lie. We got the receipts. You actually have used it. And actually, you were the one using it compared to your other staffers. So, like, I don't know. I just think that he's pandering so much to the far right that it's to the point where, you know what? If this man ever had any hopes of running for president, it's a wrap, y'all. I'm not voting for him. I'm not entertaining him. He's off the grid. I mean, it's just a wrap for me. I don't know what 2028 gonna give. Everybody want to talk about 2028 so bad. I'm gonna wait because there's just too much entertainment. Everybody's like, oh, will Bernie come back? Will it be AOC and Bernie? Y'all, I don't know. I do enjoy AOC, but I'm not. I don't know if the whole country. I don't know. We gotta see. We gotta see. You know. What I would hope for, though, I'm excited about is an open primary. That is what I'm excited about, though. I am excited about an open Democratic primary. I am excited. We need to have that. We should have had that last year, hell, but here we are. But I definitely do think that we might need to consider the thoughts of an open Democratic primary. I kind of want, to see that happen. Yeah. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in media in general. There's been a lot of talk that a lot of Democrats, a lot of politicos lately have been trying to make sports appearances at sports games, sports shows, podcasts. They're trying to tap into men. A lot of Democrats have been doing this lately, trying to, I guess, appeal to, straight men, male voters. Like, there's been a lot, like the Democratic Party's been losing male voters, straight male voters, I suppose. And they're trying to find ways to tap into that audience and appeal to them. And so they're doing these things like going out to like sport events, sports podcasts. Shapiro's to making some appearances. Politics is interesting because in so many ways, I wish it wasn't so cliche. I wish I could say that this is a wrong approach, but sadly, why are cishet men so basic? Like, why are y'all? Why? I mean, because the thing is, I would say this is a dumb move, but actually, it makes sense. Sadly, because they are tuning into the sports podcast. They're glued to sports. They're more aware of sports than politics, and it kind of annoys me because you would think that for men that are navigating in a society that with as much access to capital and power that they have, they're still, pandering to, I don't know. It must be nice. I don't know. I couldn't imagine. But yeah, I guess that's where they meet. They're meeting them. They're meeting them in spaces like that. They're meeting them in rooms like that. I mean, that's the trend. So here we are. So sports is where they're going to. They're going to sports podcasts. They're talking to those type of politicos. They're trying to broaden their overall network of folks. And, like I said, I wish that was a dumb approach, but it might be effective because, it seems like nowadays people are checked out from the MSNBCs and the CNNs, which even I'm a little checked out from that as well. But they are going somewhere. They're not just completely tuned out. So where are the men going? Where are the straight men going? I mean, I wish it wasn't a stereotype, but the stereotype is they're going to strip clubs, OnlyFans, or sports podcasts or hip hop podcasts. That's where they're going. They're going to sports games and strip clubs. I mean, that's where they're going. They're looking for an escape. And so because politicians can't, literally go to places like these strip clubs and these places like that, they're going to the sports arena to get support. And apparently they've been tapping into new audiences, and that's the new approach. So, play ball, go Birds. So in local news, I've been seeing a lot of changes that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And I think it's because there's a little bit of fatigue, right? There's a lot of national political things going on that I think is shaping people's stamina and energy for what's happening in our own backyard. And I can understand that, because even with a lot of the upcoming primary on May 20th, this DA's race has been kind of soft. Everyone's like, what's going on? What's going on with these judicial races? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's actually beginning to ramp up more so now. And there's a real reason why. So this past week, confirmations happened for ballot positions for candidates running for the judicial races and, of course, the DA race. That's between Pat Dugan, Larry Krasner. There's no major challenges to those individuals. They're on the ballot. They're going to have their face-off on May 20th. And the DA's race is pretty much a lock-in. But what's the real talk is the judicial races, because there's been some candidates who've dropped out, even some of them who, were looking like they were going to put up a real fight, but then for whatever reasons made decisions not to stay in their respective races. Now, I have some speculations on that, but there's a lot of changes happening with these judicial races. Some candidates were waiting to see how they were going to show up on the petition. They were going to stay in place. Others chose differently. What I will tell you is that I've heard that certain candidates that looked like they had a really good shot dropped out because they might get a quote-unquote golden ticket from the Democratic Party. So the golden ticket happens when a candidate is running. They're not endorsed by the party. The party wants the people they endorse to pretty much get the seats. And let's say that you're a candidate who is not endorsed by the party, but you look like a formidable challenger, right? What happens is that at the end of the primaries, there are going to be some vacancies. There are going to be some judges that are going to retire, which means that there are going to be open, quote unquote, seats and vacancies that the Democratic Party must fill for those individuals who might retire. We don't know who they are. They typically don't announce until after the primary situation gets sorted out. And then what happens is the party gives a quote unquote golden ticket to judicial candidates who are interested in filling those gaps. Now, they still have to run for the November general election, but they're pretty much a shoo-in at that point. Now, they have to run, once, the time slots are done. So let's say, for example, once a term is over for a particular judge, maybe 5 years, 2 years later, whatever, they have to then turn around and run. But the likelihood of them maintaining the seat, keeping the seat in this predominantly Democratic arena is pretty much set. And then once they're in and they run for re-election or retention or whatnot, the party's backing kind of helps them stay there. So getting the golden ticket gets awarded to somebody who's not already a candidate endorsed by the party. So let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, I'm speaking hypothetically, Jennifer Santiago got endorsed by the bar. The bar backed her, but she didn't get endorsed by the Democratic Party. But this week she dropped out. Some of us might say, why? We don't know. Her team decided that, she should drop out. But I believe personally, and this is me speaking personally, she was a formidable challenger to one of those Democrats. She would have knocked one of those Democrats off. In my opinion, she ran a very strong campaign. However, she decided she was going to drop out, and hypothetically, a candidate like her could potentially be offered a golden ticket, or could potentially be offered a golden ticket, maybe by the party. So we'll see what happens after the May 20th primaries to see if someone like her might get, hypothetically, a golden ticket. And her judicial future might not be as upset as we might assume. Other candidates have done the same thing. We'll see how it plays out after the primaries. But I just wanted to give you all some information on that. Judicial races are really hard until you see them cross the finish line, then and what I mean by finish line is until you see them declare the ballot, stay on the ballot, stay running, do their thing, right? So there's people like Kia G, who is the former Philadelphia Commission of Human Relations Executive Director. She had that position formerly. Now she's running for judge. She seems to be a shoo-in, but nothing is certain, right? You got people like Deborah Stokes, who is appearing to be someone who will likely win. She worked in DA's office for a long time, well respected in the legal field and judicial field. She has a chance, I think, of winning her judge race. These are a lot of people who have been backed by the party. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll see how it plays out. But stay tuned on that front with the judicial races. Now on to the budget. The mayor's budget is now getting some scrutiny. People, once she made her address, everybody wanted to see the fine combs and figure out what some of the issues and shuffles. There's been a lot of mixed reactions to the mayor's budget. This is the One Philly 2.0 budget. This is her second year. This is for the fiscal year 2026 that we will see go into effect in July. A lot of people are, for starters, overall, people think the budget is a little boring. There isn't really anything too exciting about it. It seems like more of the continuation of what the Parker administration was already working towards. I guess the big highlight that people thought was going to be a splash from administration was seeing if it was going to get, there's a lot of money going, hundreds of millions of dollars going into public housing. And so that was supposed to be the big, huge headliner, but a lot of people weren't that excited about it. Not to say it's a bad thing. I think that any money going to public housing in this economy is good, but I don't think it's doing the splash that people thought it was going to. Police budget is going to be over $850 million, which is okay. Well, okay. I'm never crazy about increased police budgets, especially with other needs. However, one major note that is getting a lot of attention is that the police budget, $1.3 million is going to police uniforms. Okay, right? Sure. But shockingly, only $1 million is going to the Public Defenders Association. Yes, you heard that right. More money is going to police uniforms in this budget than what's going to go to the Defenders Association. Now, for those who are probably trying to figure out what does that mean, right? What does that mean? It's quite telling. It's quite telling. This is a budget that is going to create a very interesting situation for the city, the city's priorities. Because, Mayor Parker always says, don't listen to what we say, look at what we do, right? Something along that variation. Well, I'm looking and I'm a little taken aback. So the Public Defenders Association's executive director, that position was formerly held by Chief Defender Keir Bradford Grace. She was previously in position. It's been a couple years now. There is someone who is new, and they're speaking on this, and they're occupying it, and they're really speaking up about some of the things that's happening in our community. And this budget is, we see a lot about what the priorities are in our budgets, and we don't talk enough about what that means for the public at large, right? So here's some things to consider. For starters,
and this is something that stood out to me that I noticed. We have a situation where such a budget like that when we think about what's happening in our city, public defenders defend people, who need resources, right? People who might be innocent, we don't, people who don't have assistance to legal support, who can't afford a lawyer, but they deserve to be represented, right? We see this happen all the time, these conversations where folks are saying, what happens when we don't get certain resources? What happens when folks, you think about Michael White. Michael White benefited from the Public Defenders Association. Had he not had the Public Defenders Association, that young black man would have probably gone through the system. And we see this happen a lot. And so a lot of people are not talking about some of the controversies that happen in these situations. A budget is arguably a moral document. That is Keisha Hudson Brooks, who is the current executive director of the Public Defenders Association. Let me be very clear. $1.3 million is going from Mayor Parker's budget proposal to upgrade police uniforms. $1 million? That is literally all she's giving in the mayor's budget for the Defender Association. This is an organization that represents 50,000 Philadelphians last year, including 4,000 children. The mayor says, don't simply listen to what I say, watch what we do. Well, I don't know. You're giving 33% more money to upgrade police uniforms than what you're giving to an entire Defender Association for this city that represented 50,000 Philadelphians last year, 4,000 children. So this is what I'm talking about when we say the budget, right? This budget hasn't had major increases across the board, but there's money being moved from little parcel to parcel. And the devil's in the details, right? That these little amounts that get moved around to increase that police budget, people said, well, something's going to have to get a cut. Well, this is what you're cutting. You're slicing off $1 million here, 300,000 here, a little there. And that's just ridiculous to me. So when people ask me, why do I get annoyed when there's these massive police department budgets? Because you're taking money from institutions that are providing actual services. You're going to increase a police budget. That means that there is going to be hypothetically more arrests, more people getting, caught up in this system. Well, some of those people might be innocent. Some of those people don't deserve the maximum penalties. They deserve to be represented. Well, you're cutting resources from a situation, a department, association that would greatly benefit Philadelphians that might get caught up in this criminal justice system. So if you're asking me how I feel about this, I'm not feeling good about it. I don't think this is a good idea. And hopefully City Council is waking up and paying attention, and they're going to fight to get the Defenders Association some resources, because $1 million is not enough when you're giving $1.3 million to upgrade police uniforms. I'm sorry, what do they need? Is there going to be like a Gucci tassel on, a buckle on it? Is going to be a new, 24 karat gold bezel on it? I'm trying to figure out what's the upgrades to the uniforms, because I don't know. Like, what's the uniforms? Like, what are we adding on those uniforms that need so much expenses? So, not feeling that. But in other news, now this is the real shakeup this week. And I've been hearing some things, and I'm going to provide some stuff. So a lot of you all were asking about my breaking news earlier last week on the sheriff's office. Now, y'all know I'm not a fan of the sheriff's office and the way that they've been handling money. And that's long before Sheriff Rochelle Bilal. This goes back to Jewel Williams and prior, Mr. Green and all of them, right? So let me be very clear about that. But there is some big tea coming out of Harrisburg, right? The Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, which is also known as PICA or PICA. PICA basically had a board meeting, and they have called on City Council and the Parker administration to eliminate 2 independently elected row offices to, quote, consolidate the functions and such officers into appropriate agencies. So they're asking
for the about abolition of the sheriff's office and the register of wills. Now, those are the two row offices that have been, just always in some mess. When Tracy Gordon was there, she was the former register of wills. She did a lot of stuff that had a lot of criticism. And this sheriff's office, let's just keep it 100. No real accountability. None. The sheriff, the Philadelphia sheriff hasn't held his tax sale in years. And it's costing the city millions of dollars. Taxpayers' dollars, okay? Let's talk about how people, have bought properties at Philadelphia sheriff sales and never got the deeds. People, ex-homeowners, are asking for the money. After seeking leftover funds from sheriff sales, they've been stonewalled on that. And we're going to talk about the ammo, the DJs, the $9,000 mascot. People are calling the sheriff's office slush fund spending, okay? And then, of course, let's not forget that the Philadelphia sheriff's office can't even account for nearly 200 guns. There's a lot going on in that damn sheriff's office. And now PICA is arguing for it to be abolished. I agree. I've been on a sheriff's office many years ago. Google me. I've been talking this for years. This office has been a problem. And not just under Rochelle Bilal, because a lot of people who want to support her say, oh, you're attacking a black woman, Ernest, blah, blah, blah. Y'all got to stop weaponizing people's gender and identity for their lack of efficiency in their work. Okay? She's an elected official. She should be held accountable, just like a man should be held accountable. And you all know I am an equal opportunity accountability holder. I hold black elected officials accountable. I hold white elected officials accountable. Look at my record, okay? Who called for Danielle Outlaw to resign, but also called for Mayor Kennedy to do as well? This guy. Okay, listen, power, regardless of the identity, the gender, or whatever in the position, I'm an equal opportunity accountability holder. Okay? I don't have a bias. There's no gender bias. Y'all got to remember, I was the one who asked for Sheriff Jewel Williams when he was in the position not to run. Called him out on all of these sexual harassment allegations and settlements that was done by the state and the city before he was a sheriff and the state rep. I've been on that milk. Okay? He was a black man. Rochelle Bilal is a black woman. We thought maybe that there need to be change. And I supported anyone who was going against Jewel Williams. Well, Rochelle Bilal got the position, and she has not done anything to move the needle and change things for the better. So I don't think she should be in a position either. It's simple as that. And there's a lot of Democrats in this party that like to weaponize gender and play into identity politics when it's convenient for them. Oh, it's not enough to support, certain elected officials who are standing on business, right? But then you pick certain other people and then you want to use their identities. Well, this is not the best representation of leadership. This is not the best representation. She could be a woman. That's true. She can experience sexism. That's true. But she also cannot be good at her job and not be qualified to be in it. That can also be true. Two things can be true at the same time over here. It's called nuance, people. And I think sometimes folks act like it could be one or the other. No. Sometimes you can be able to, if with the right facts, the right information, and the context, you can make a strong case for somebody that looks like you that does not deserve to be in the position. Just saying. So I'm also hearing, though, and this is what you don't know. This is what they're not going to tell you. This is what is coming from Ernestly speaking. This is the context that articles don't give. There's a reason why there's a lot of pressure. I am willing to bet, and what I am willing to also can tell you, I can't tell everything yet, but pay attention. But there is going to be a major overhaul of that sheriff's office by the end of this year. Mark my words, the way that the sheriff's office look, the who's in the position, there is going to be a shakeup this year in that office. And guess what? It's not going to come from your faves in the mayor's office or city council. This is good. This is coming from the governor's mansion. This is coming from Harrisburg. This is coming up top. Now, I know there are some reporters that have tried to call state senators and call state reps to try to figure it out. They're not. This is bigger than them. Pay attention to that AG, Attorney General Dave Sunday, that new Republican Attorney General. He is about to clamp down. Now, I'm here to pour y'all some tea. And y'all need to pay close attention to this because a lot of people A lot of your favorite Democrats locally ain't telling you anything. And these local newspapers, they don't know what the hell they're doing either. So let me tell y'all what's going on. Dave Sunday is the Attorney General. He is a Republican. From what I've heard from people from both sides of the aisle, he is not a Trumper. He is not a Donald Trump type of Republican. This guy is pretty much respected. You know, there is a little bit of bipartisan energy towards him. Democrats have been warming up to him in the state house in Harrisburg. A lot of folks I've spoken to have told me he's not a horrible guy. But at the same time, he's got to do his job. And so he is definitely going to shake up some tables. Some of the tables he's been shaking up has been with some ward leader positions and some seats. Now, let me give you one good one. There's a guy named Willie Jordan. He is a long time ward leader in West Philadelphia. He is no longer a ward leader as of last week. He had to step down. It was a quiet little step down. The Democratic Party, Philadelphia Democratic Party City Committee don't want you to know that this happened. Why did this happen? Sources close have told me that when Josh Shapiro was the Attorney General, this is before he was governor, Josh Shapiro was coming hard at some Democrats, okay? And he is a Democrat himself. But he was going after some state reps. He was going after, some ward leaders for bribery and all types of allegations. And when he was on that, he offered a lot of those individuals to two things. Either he was going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, or they could respectfully resign and never participate in politics in this Commonwealth again. So they either had to take the deal and step down and resign, or there was going to be a serious case, okay? Several state reps resigned during that time of which Shapiro was in office. Several of them resigned. Several ward leaders disappeared as well. Well, there was a list, and not everybody in that list that Shapiro had, he had got to, because he ran for governor, and then he got the governorship, and then he had to appoint an interim AG. That interim AG did not really want to go back and spin the block and follow that work. She just kind of left it alone. It kind of just stayed on the desk and it moved. She didn't really go after many people. It just kind of stayed there. And the interim AG didn't benefit from that, right? She's a Democrat. Shapiro's the governor. What is there for her to do? Well, now AG Dave Sunday then came back. He going back on those cases. He looking at what was handled before. And apparently he's looking at that list and he's going through checking it twice. And from sources close to me have told me, allegedly, that Willie Jordan was one of those ward leaders that was on the list. And so Willie has struck a deal, allegedly. And that is why he's no longer a ward leader. He gets to keep apparently his pension. He'll be able to get his pension, but he will not participate in politics. He has not been criminally charged. He's not been indicted. All of that got out the way because of a deal was made. So the AGs will do a deal. They'll say, look, we won't prosecute you on whatever, but you're going to have to get out this seat. And so allegedly, Willie got the seat. And he is no longer a ward leader. And apparently Dave Sunday have a couple of other people on this list, allegedly, that he's going to follow and pursue. Now, there has been some speculation. Now, this is all speculation. Now, I might know some things, but I cannot reveal my sources and I cannot spill tea, but the shit is hot. Apparently, allegedly, that was the same case for the former state rep, Stephen Kinsey. Stephen Kinsey was supposed to run for re-election for state rep. He was very much taking his pretty time. And that is now the seat that's in the Northwest that is currently occupied by Andre Carroll, who arguably has been a breath of fresh air in that district. But there was a period of time where everybody was waiting for what Kinsey was going to do. Now, in an awkward situation, Kinsey, announced at the very last minute, which then triggered he didn't run for re-election, to be clear. He didn't run for re-election, which then allowed it to be an open primary. But then that got shortly closed when Andre Carroll got the endorsement of the Democratic Party. He pretty much ran uncontested. He didn't really have any smoke, any real challenges. Most of the people got dropped and stepped out the race. And he pretty much got the nomination. And then, interesting enough, not only did Kinsey not run for re-election, but Kinsey resigned before his term was up, which then triggered a special election for Andre to assume the role, the win, much sooner than just the November general. So Andre became state rep last year compared to being inaugurated with what would have been his freshman mates early January. So there was a lot of changes, and people try to figure out, well, why did Kinsey not run for re-election? What's going on? It just seemed like for a while he was telling people he was going to do it again. But apparently, allegedly, there was some higher ups up top. And this is before Dave Sunday took the position. But apparently, he took a deal to drop out before there was a threat or possibility of an indictment. Now, I've heard from some elected officials off record, well, not off record, on background. They told me on background. Okay, so let me be clear. If it was off the record, I couldn't tell you anything. But on background, I can share this information, but I cannot disclose the sources that told me the information. Does that make sense? Because if it's off the record, I can't even tell you what conversation happened. If it's off the record, if you ask me, did something happen? I say, what are you talking about? I don't know anything. Okay, but this was on background. So let me be clear. Let me clarify that. So what I was told on background from some elected officials was that they heard that party leader Bob Brady, the Philadelphia chairman of the Philadelphia Democratic City Committee, is that Brady has been calling around asking about Kinsey, if Kinsey was indicted. There was questions about whether Kinsey was indicted or was there some threats or was Kinsey okay legally? Because some speculation have said that possibly Dave Sunday might be revisiting whatever is going on with Kinsey. Even though he's no longer in political office, what deal was struck, if there's anything else pending. There is some speculation there. Again, this is all allegations. This is all speculation. Kinsey could be completely fine. Maybe some reporters can call Kinsey and ask him if he's good. But what I have heard from elected officials was that last week, Brady was asking about Kinsey, which if he is the leader of his own city party, why would he be calling around asking about a former state rep? That just seems to be weird, right? And so something's up. And this is why you're probably asking me, what does that have to do with the sheriff's office, all this other stuff? That Governor Shapiro, there seems to be a bipartisan relationship that he might be having with certain senior Republicans up top. And maybe there might be a bipartisan understanding that, like, look, maybe there's a relationship. Maybe there is some type of understanding. And I mean, to be clear, Shapiro used to be an AG, so he knows the power of an AG because he served in the role. But he also understands the power of the governor. And so there might be a situation where Democrats are going to have to give up some bodies. And Dave Sunday might have the power to go after everybody. But maybe they might say, look, we ain't trying to have a bloodbath. And there are some people that might have to go. There might have to be some sacrificial lambs. Shapiro knows that means. I mean, there was his people in his own party he had to forego to be able to prove to Republican voters that he was somebody who can appeal across the board and hold people accountable. That was part of the allure of Shapiro, of this tough law enforcer, that he was fair to across the board, that he will take his own out. That corruption is corruption, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Shapiro has demonstrated that in the role that he played as AG. And so I wonder if there is some of that same energy now that the AG seat belongs to a Republican now. Could there be some cross deals or some understanding there? We'll see. But what I'm saying here is that it looks like the shakeups that's going to happen in Philadelphia politics is above the local party. The local party has struggled to hold its own accountable. And so now it's up to either the feds or up to the state. And so it looks like the state is going to be reining in and holding these offices accountable. That includes the sheriff's office, because if Mayor Sherrell Parker will not do it, if city council won't do it, then who's going to do it? It's going to be that governor. It's going to be that attorney general. So I think there's going to be some major shakeups with these row offices. I think there's going to be some regulations coming in. I think there's going to be some serious accountability taking place. And I think that it is going to be major, and it's going to shake up Philly politics in a way that we haven't seen in a while. But you know who I blame? I blame the local Democratic establishment, because there were issues for a while. We see the issues. I mean, it's gotten to the point that even the Committee of 70 has been speaking out against the sheriff's office and these row offices. Other agencies and other groups in this city are beginning to speak out. Every single time you turn around in the press, the sheriff's office is under scrutiny. This is no laughing matter. This is serious. And I think a lot of people will be impacted. And so in my opinion, if I was working at the sheriff's office right now and I was an employee, I would tell you, I would be looking for a new job, because you may not have a choice when it's all said and done in the next couple of months. Maybe sooner. We don't know. But stuff is starting to get real funny and real interesting over there. Stay woke and stay tuned. Now, I do want to address that there has been some major changes in local media as well. The Philadelphia Inquirer has laid off 8 journalists that we know so far. There are layoffs coming. We knew layoffs was coming at the Inquirer for quite some time, and now it has impacted the community's desk. This was supposed to be the Inquirer's big, huge DEI splash. And I think that's a big thing that we're not talking enough about. But the community's desk was supposed to be their big, huge DEI push at the Inquirer. That desk had 8 journalists. Now it's going to, after April 11th, there will be no more. They're going to eliminate that desk. And that desk was funded in support of the Linfest Institute for Journalism, which is basically their big funder, their big, huge nonprofit fund that has been supporting the Inquirer largely. Well, now it's been crickets around what's going on with that community and engagement desk, which was supposed to be an opportunity for them. They framed it, that desk, this news beat, was supposed to be a way for them to guarantee consistent coverage of underrepresented communities in Philadelphia. That was supposed to be their way to maintain DEI and diversity and coverage and make sure that underrepresented groups are going to get positive and nuanced coverage at the Inquirer. Well, that desk that was supposed to do that has been cut. From what we know, 4 journalists of color has been cut. Some of them have been longtime journalists. I am not privy to share their names yet, but they eventually will announce very soon. But what I've been hearing from them on background is that several of them say they've been forced out. They've been told to take a buyout, or that there was going to be a 100% guarantee their job was going to be cut. So a lot of them are being forced into taking buyouts, and this is coming from them, quote. And they have claimed that they're basically, pretty much being forced out of a job. They're taking these buyouts because there is no room for them elsewhere. A memo and emails that we've obtained and read is that the argument is that this is because of an economic change. Digital media is print media is failing. They want to advance their innovative digital footprint in their work. They need to make some tough decisions, and that means they have to cut back on some salaries and cut some positions. So 8 people are without a job at the Inquirer. I believe it's 7 journalists. Maybe there's more. Somebody from the business department is without a job now. They've cut somebody from the business department side, but now they're cutting into editorial, and it's getting cut. It's getting cut deep. People have asked, what is the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists' position on this? What is the community going to do? I have told you all that where I stand on it, the Inquirer, I have zero faith and zero confidence in the Philadelphia Inquirer. I think they're a lost cause. They have made some decisions that are just not, that they don't want to come to the table. They want to do their own thing. And they're not serious about DEI. I have not recommended, there's a moratorium that our organization has placed. We're not encouraging anyone to work at the Inquirer, to do business with the Inquirer, to do any work with them. We're not encouraging anyone, specifically Black and brown journalists, to work there. We do not consider that institution a safe space for Black and brown employees. We don't consider it to be a productive space for them to grow in their careers and professions, and we will not encourage anyone to take a job and position there. What I will tell you is that a lot of Black journalists that have been interviewed at the Inquirer, after hearing our position and having conversations with me, they have decided not to apply, not to go further, not to even consider them, because the energy there is not good. This is an organization that did not want to meet the demands and the quest of agreements that they already made, right? Let me be very clear. PABJ, during the pandemic around 2021, had made a partnership and a deal with the Inquirer. Like we made an agreement on, it was not the perfect deal that we wanted, but it was something that we said, let's find common ground on what we can agree on. And we did. We talked about things we could agree on. We landed a deal. And one of the things that we agreed upon was that we wanted there to be an internship fellowship program to create a pipeline for diverse journalists, for sure. We wanted there to be a community advisory board that would consist of members of the community at large that would quarterly recommend and advise coverage and editorial and give recommendations to the Inquirer to hold them accountable from a community standpoint. We had several other proposals that were like micro and macro that we wanted to happen. And we also wanted PABJ to play a role in advising them on major hiring decisions and whatnot. There was a lot of meaningful agreements that we agreed on as a unit between us and the Inquirer. Well, I'm here to tell you that 3 years later, none of those things got honored. They actually created their own internal DEI team, which we thought was horrible because if you all have a DEI problem, hiring within to fix those issues does not actually solve the issue externally. Like you can't be the problem and the solution at the same damn time, right? So they really tried to scoop under us and go up under us to do their own self-prescribed remedies to fix their own issues. But it's like, if you all had the solution to these problems, then you wouldn't be in the predicament that you're currently in. So there was a lot of ways that they tried to skid upon accountability. In the end, it was clear that they did not want to work on an actual program or project or collaborate with PABJ under reasonable terms. And so as a result, the relationship got fractured. And since then, they've been trying to basically create their problem. So rather than have a community advisory advisory board, right, which is external, they basically created their own community news desk, which was basically coverage. And we were telling them that, okay, that's cool, you can do that, but that does not replace what a community advisory board does, right? A community advisory board is something that looks at all issues and matters. Like you cannot, you cannot job your way out of this. You cannot desk your way out of this. You actually have to create an external community voice, right? So how do you get feedback from community? Like how do you get community impact on your coverage? Because the community desk can only do so much as a beat, right? But how do you get other voices? They were like, they were trying to host at one point these salons where they were bringing people in to give them feedback, but then that died. And so now there is like literally no actual serious community advisory aspect at the Inquirer, one that is independent and not tampered by paid consultants and employees. Like that's, there's a lot of weird things happening. Their DEI role, right, was supposed to be a vice president of DEI and diversity. They took that off the masthead and made it a director position, which means that position is getting paid. The person who has that position currently is getting paid way less than what the previous person had. The position has lost its teeth, right? The role has been reduced. And yet again, now there is no space in place to protect Black and brown journalists in the way in which they would do. The gag is they were more equipped, which they barely was 5 years ago, than they currently are now. And I think that was by design. And so people are like, look at what's happening at the Inquirer. What do we do? Not a damn thing. Let it burn. Because in many ways, there's nothing to do. Unless that staff decides to fight back and revolt, which I am sad to say is not going to really, I don't think is going to happen. I think the Black staff, a lot of the Black staff, not all of them, but a lot of the Black staff at the Inquirer are compromised. They have decided to basically compromise their principles and the greater cause of equity and diversity in this news ecosystem to basically align themselves with the staff through NABJ Philadelphia, which is their own little pet DEI committee that is mostly members of the Inquirer. And their obsession with the Inquirer, rather than looking at the entire media ecosystem, is quite telling. And so what is sad is that in striking that deal, I think that they thought that by distancing themselves from PABJ, not really doing any serious, tangible DEI work within their staffing place, is that now they're pretty much have bought silence for complicity. The complicity is that a lot of them think that by, not fighting, not pushing for DEI, not aligning themselves with PABJ, that this is going to give them job security. And now the layoffs have come, and several of those individuals who are aligned or was somewhat loosely affiliated, some of them are beginning to lose their jobs. What a shame. Bless their hearts. To be clear, I might sound a little crass. I don't want anybody to lose their jobs. I don't want anyone to have to experience unemployment. That is not something that I'm happy for or rooting for. However, what I will say is that in many cases, when people choose to fuck around, they have to find out. And they have chosen to fuck around. And unfortunately, they have to find out. And it's unfortunate. It is sorrows and sorrows. It is tears and it is condolences and it is thoughts and prayers. Because the reality is that we knew this was going to happen. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And now when you see the anti-blackness that perpetuates itself in these ways, they find themselves in the Candace Owens situation of that when you try to play and you play with the clown and you try to clown around, the clown bites back. And sadly, that is what's happening to those Black staffers who have chosen to align themselves with an institution that they knew was never going to do right by them, but they wanted to be inconvenienced. They sold out and pimped out those people who spoke out. And now a lot of the activist voices, a lot of the advocate voices for DEI have now left. The ship is sailed, and there's only a few of them left. And sadly, I don't know what progress can be done there. It is a dying ship. The Inquirer is collapsing before our very eyes. And there's not enough money the Linfest Institute can do to try to save it. Because it's starting to get real funny over there across the board. I have so many opinions and so many thoughts. But at the end of the day, it's nothing that I haven't said already. And I'm in a position right now where I'm watching a lot of things happen in a very karmic way. And it's sad to see, but we knew this was going to happen. Thoughts and prayers. Be well. Now, moving along to Ask Ernest. There's been a trend, and people have been asking me this throughout the month, actually, but there was other priorities and topics and discussions that I never really got to go back to this conversation, but I feel like now it is actually timely, actually. There's this conversation online about being in community, about how people say they want to be in community and what does it mean to be in community and why some people struggle with finding a sense of community and what have you. Now, I can talk about this on a micro level and a macro level. I think I'm going to try to do both in this response. But let's talk about community. What is community, right? Community is a gathering of people that show up for each other, support each other, provide, and be able to sustain a larger purpose that is outside themselves. That is what I believe community is. What community is not is a fan club. What community is not is a cult. What community is not is just a bunch of people that are friends with each other, a popularity contest. That's not what community is. Community is sustained by reciprocity, right? People giving what they can and showing up, right? It is sustained by reciprocity. It is sustained by accountability. It is sustained by resources. If you don't have accountability, if you don't have resources, and you don't have reciprocity, you don't have a community. You take one of them three out, and you don't have community. You take resources out, we don't have a community. If you take reciprocity out, we don't have community. If you take accountability out, we don't have community. Resources and reciprocity is just basically transactionalism. Accountability keeps that. Resources and accountability is basically parenting, no shade. But reciprocity keeps things being equally yoked, right? So reciprocity means pretty much that you're giving out what you're putting in, you're receiving what you're getting, and everybody is respecting that harmony and that balance, right? Resources are things that people can use, what people need. It's not always what people want, but it is what is essential and a necessity, right? And accountability is making sure that those things there are checks and balances, that people are not taking too much than what they need, that people are doing their fair share when they can, and that people are respecting each other and holding each other liable for the harms that they create. And this is rooted around the principles of love, injustice, transparency, and joy, right? Because community should give joy. That's what community looks like, right? So folks are always saying, why, I struggle with being in community, or, I feel lonely in this world. And now more than ever, we need community. We do. Now more than ever, we do need community. Okay? With all this that's going on in the world, community is important now more than ever. However, we always find people, the Amber Roses of the world and other folks that say, the community won't accept me, or I this community embraced me, or I didn't feel like I was a part of this community, and blah, blah, blah. You hear these stories. And I want to tell y'all something. I want to be real with y'all about something. There's never been a time in my life that I've never felt like I didn't belong in the community. Now, there were certain sectors of a community that I may have not felt like I was included in, but I've never ever felt like I did not belong in a respective community. So for example, in the LGBTQ community, okay, mainstream whiteness, yeah, I never felt included in the larger white splash of the LGBTQ community. But in the Black queer community, I always felt like I had a place. I always felt like I had community in a queer community. I've never not had a sense of community with my queerness. Just say. As far as my Blackness go, I was always in community with Black people. Certain pockets of it, maybe the Black church, maybe not so much at certain spots. Maybe the upper echelon, the Martha's Vineyard, spaces. At one point in time, I wasn't. But I always had some Black community. I've always felt like I was in some community. And that has always sustained me. In journalism, when I graduated from Penn, I quickly joined the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. I quickly joined Black journalism communities and circles. And you know what I did in those circles? I served, I volunteered, I joined the board, I was joining committees, I was active. And you know what? As a result of that, over 10 years later, I've never been without a job. I've never not had resources. I've never not had a network. I've never not had connections. There are people in this business that got hella money, had higher positions than me, y'all, have had all these things. And you know what happens when they get laid off, they get fired, they quit a job? They talk about how they're not in community, how they feel left out, how they felt lonely. And I would be like, where? How? How you felt left out? What you talking about? And when I look at some of those people, because I really want to call names, but I'm not ready for that right now. But if you're my friend, I'm going to text you. We can text and we can talk about who not being community, right? But what I've learned a lot, is that the crazy part about community is that you got to be present no matter when it's serving you and not serving you. And I think that I'm going to use my experience as a metaphor because I want some of you all to think about how you all show up. Because I've been noticing a lot of people in various industries, whether it's fashion, journalism, media, politics, whatever, always talking about how they're not in community and they not this and people don't like them and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it's not jealousy, boo. Sometimes it's you. I'm going to keep it 100. Sometimes it's not envy. Sometimes it's just you. Sometimes y'all can be a bitch. Sometimes y'all can be an asshole. Sometimes y'all can be a jerk. Sometimes y'all don't know how to be in community because y'all don't know what community looks like, and I'm going to teach you. So this week's Ask Ernest, I'm actually going to talk about what it means to be in community because a lot of y'all don't know what that shit means. And so I hear a lot of stories on my timeline of folks being like they feel so alone and isolated and there's no community. That's a lie. And I'm not gaslighting people, but that's a lie. I have heard certain Black journalists in mainstream media talk about how there's no community support when they have a show. That when they lost their job, nobody checked on them. That when they was going out here trying to make these moves, no one was clapping for them or rooting for them, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell y'all something. In every aspect and stage of my
fucking career, I've always had people that cheered for me. I've always had people that showed up for me. I've always had people that supported what I had going on. Was it millions? Not always. Was it thousands? Not always. Was it hundreds? I mean, now we are. But there was always people. And you know why? Because in community, you're always not in a space. If you're the person always asking, why are people not doing something for me? You better ask yourself, what the fuck have you been doing for other people? Since we want to talk about community, right? When I look at the Lit Brothers, that's community. The reason why Josh is flourishing, the reason why I flourished, the reason why Dr. Gio and Jamarcus, we have been able to do great because we created community. Whether it was through media, influencing, creative arts, we was creating community for each other as Black queer men in this Philadelphia media ecosystem. We created community for each other. We created a network for each other. Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, we created community and invested in community. And there's people that's on that NABJ Philly side, they're struggling. You know why? Because they don't know what community looks like. Because they don't know what it means to say, you know what? We show up for each other. We put money in the pot. We support mutual aid. We support collective bargaining. We support all of these things. And guess what? Sometimes we may not get something in that moment. When we do that, it may not be transactional, but we know that investing and supporting someone in this moment, that there is a residual impact of that. And we knew that. And so what I have realized that when I decided I wanted community, I entered spaces that existed. I didn't reinvent the wheel. I entered spaces and said, how can I show up? Right? What can I do? What is my talent? What can I bring to the table? And then I was transparent about what do I need? And there are times in my career where I didn't need much. I just needed love. I just needed people to just tell me, keep going. I just needed some verbal praise. I just needed people to just, when my article dropped, I just wanted some people to share my article so people can seek the word. I didn't need no money. I didn't need no food. But when I saw that people in my community needed resources, right? Job listings and food or money, I chipped in for that, right? Because what people's needs are is very different. And I think the problem is that people don't give what they have or what they can give to put into the pot. Everybody has something to give. We all have gifts. We all have services. We all have talent. And if you're a professional, listen, you better learn how to barter, baby. You better learn how to give something in kind, right? And so we all have something to give in community. And I learned this at a very young age when I joined boards. People always will say, well, boards are just nothing but places where people give money. Yeah, there are some boards that do get. But I learned very quickly the art of community through boards because people would bring their talents. So we had people on our board that was a lawyer. Okay, this person give legal advising pro bono. You got somebody who's a good person that does taxes and finances. This person can give good financial advice and tax advice, right? I had a media communications background. I could give great media advice and consulting and whatnot. So we put all of our talents together, and that's how we was able to support each other. What are you doing to give your offer and your services? Are you coming into community spaces to offer your actual talents before you ask to get something out? Are you transparent about what's the support that you need? Because what I'm also recognizing in quote unquote community spaces, there are people that got too much pride, too much ego. They got too much fear to acknowledge that, I need some type of support. How can people show up? But if you're asking for people to show up for you, you better be showing up too, right? That's what the reciprocity looks like. And we got to have the ability to be accountable to ourselves about when we fall behind. And so when people talk about community is not just only in, nonprofit work or collective work. It's in relationships, it's in friendships, it's in all of these dynamics. Sometimes it looks like thinking of a person and doing for a person say, you know what, I would really like that. And they're going through some hard times. What does it look like to just say, you know what, I don't even got to ask. I see a person doing something. Let me just be nice and do that for a friend. Now, I'm going to be a little bit explicit, but some of my friends, I love to surprise my friends with gifts. That's just what I do. That's my love language. I like to spoil sometimes. Sometimes I see a friend, I see something, and I'm just like, look, I know you got it hard. Let's go out to eat.
Let's go to dinner. Let me take you out to lunch. Let me do whatever. If I'm in a situation where I got a connection or hook up to something, it may not be something I need, but if I know it's something they would like, I'm just gonna do it. Just because that's what friends are for. And I think some people just don't understand how to be considerate outside themselves. Look, people got battles. Everybody's fighting different battles in life. But don't ever be so caught up in your own fucking shit that you forget to be a human and be humane. That even if you're dealing with some other shit, that you can also be considerate enough to do something nice for somebody or think of somebody or be supportive in some type of way. That's how I have realized that in my experience, like, look, throughout my entire 10 years, the one thing that I will give myself credit for is I feel like I am a good ass friend. I feel like when I can and when I have the ways in which I can show up and be present and to do, I can be going through my own battles, but I never lose sight of the ways that I can be present or be supportive for friends. Now, everybody does not need the same support that other people need. I'm the type of person where if I'm going through something, I don't necessarily need a bunch of people to call me and text me and pat me like a dog. I am like, leave me alone. I just want some silence. I like solitude sometimes. Or, sometimes the things I need, a friend can't necessarily give that to me. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's what a husband can do. Sometimes let me be quiet. Now I'm talking too much. But sometimes there's some things that people can do, some things you can't give. My friend was the other day, it's like, so I'm single, I need a man. Look, let me find you a man. We're going to help you find somebody. That's going to take some time. But maybe we can find you a vibrator. Let me stop. Listen, but you got to be transparent and communicative about that. You got to be transparent and communicative about that because those are the things that matter. Those are the things that's going to have a lasting impact. And we just got to be more clear about that, right? So I just want to just say that I see a lot of people talking about this type of stuff on social media. I look at a lot of these Hollywood journalists because I'm gonna call some things out, and they'll talk about, when I was in the industry, the black community show up for me, and some of these people that be talking this shit, I'm like, well, where have your ass been? Because when you got Hollywood, you wasn't really talking about black issues. You wasn't engaging people like you should. You got Hollywood. I didn't see you at these Black Journalism Association groups. I didn't see you want to be on these panels. You wanted a fee. You wanted to charge. Where was you in these community spaces before you needed people? And so I just tell people, sometimes you got to drop the ego and stop acting like whatever you got going on is the only thing that's in the world. I get that people need to take time to reflect. But if you're going to do that kind of stuff, don't come into the spaces talking about what you haven't got because community is only going to work as much as you invest in it. I feel like I've been blessed in my career and in my life because I have always been someone that has always been, investing in communities that I'm a part of. Now, let me be very clear. There are people that want to demand you to be of service in communities that you have not actually identified yourself with. There are people that will tell you, why haven't you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Baby, I don't know them people. And let me be very clear. I was not necessarily in community with that particular group of people. I don't want to name any names, but there's some people that will tell me, well, you don't use your platform to do this and do that. Hold on now. I'm not trying to clock nobody's tea or put no tea out there, no business, but sometimes you don't know the situations that sometimes some people don't prescribe to certain communities. That don't mean you got to shit on them, but you may not belong to those communities. So it may not be your place to show up in the way because you don't know how. Let me clarify. So there's some people that sometimes is like, oh, well, there's this group of black activists on the other side of town that's working on this particular issue, and why you didn't amplify the work they was doing. First of all, I was not in community with those individuals. I didn't show up in that space. There was no synergy there. There was no relationship there. I don't know what their demands are. I don't know what their wants are. Maybe I'm not a part of that said space because maybe that said community might be practicing in ways that I don't agree with or I think might be harmful or counterproductive. Is it my place to shit on them publicly and drag them? No. But is it necessarily my obligation to do anything beyond what I've said? No. So we don't need to be making assumptions on what people's spaces are and their respective communities are. There's a lot of people that be doing that out here, trying to prescribe what you need to be doing and what you need to be showing up for. You don't know people's journeys. You don't know why people may not be doing certain things. And so it's been very big to me, for me, to establish boundaries. And I'm big on that boundaries. I tell people all the time, you got to know how to establish boundaries, and be able to, lay the foundation. Because some people will take advantage of your visibility and just think that, oh, two black people or two gay black people, then that means that they must be in community. No, 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 no. A community is how you see it. And there's nuances and intersections there. So don't be so quick to prescribe recommendations and roles on folks. Now, I will say that the community that I subscribe to, right, the ones that I'm a part of, I invest in those and they've invested in me, and I have no problems with the communities that I'm a part of. I think people that have issues with the ones that or the lack of thereof, the question becomes, well, what community do you want to be a part of? And why? And why haven't you shown up? Why haven't you entered those spaces? Why haven't you come? Have you come just to ask or beg? Because if you're just coming to beg people, then yeah, exploiting communities may not be a good look. But this is a respective, relative way. We got to redefine and reset the room on what this looks like, because this word community gets used a lot, and it's obvious a lot of people don't know what it means. So, I just wanted to spill that tea. Now, moving along, movies. This week, Snow White. Okay, it's been the talk of the town. It did okay at the box office. It wasn't very hot. I feel like a lot of the conversations that people have had about it has just kind of been misguided. I think there's a lot of reasons. So it opened up at the box office with $43 million, less than $100 million at the global box office. It was a lukewarm opening. It did debut at number 1, but it did not do as well as some of the other previous Disney remakes, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with several factors. I think a lot of the reviews have just been an instant pile on and a lot of racism, right? Because Rachel Zegler, she's incredible, by the way. She sings her ass off. She's an incredible actress. I thought the movie was very timely. I enjoyed it personally. But I think that a lot of people really did not give it a chance off the jump. Now, I do think it could probably have what happened to The Lion King, which I'm hoping for, is that the Mufasa Lion King, I told y'all it was good. It was a sleeper hit. It grew. It did wonderful at the box office. But when it first opened, it kind of was a little lukewarm. But then it just continued to just grow and grow and grow. And it surprised everybody with how well it ended up doing. But I mean, maybe that can happen with Snow White. Maybe more word of mouth can be the case for that. Maybe more people get talked, because Mufasa Lion King, initially it got made over $700 million at the box office with a budget of $200 million. So it was a super success. It did really, really well. And I was happy with it, because a lot of people thought that it wasn't going to be as good, but it did really well. A lot of people, the reviews were positive. And a lot of people felt like it was good, and that it was actually an improvement from the Lion King remake, which I agree. I really felt like it definitely did that. People said that the New York Times attributed long-term box office success to less competition from other theater releases and the social media popularity around the songs, right? It just built, and it grew, and it did its big one, and it was great to see how it turned out. And interesting enough, it surpassed Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which initially had the lead over it. And then that movie ended up selling down with $491 million. Their budget was $122 million, and its final box office was $491 million, which is not bad. But in the end, The Lion King just ate it up, right? And that's so important. People really slept on that film, but it ended up doing its big one. So we love to see it. But this Snow White film may have that potential. Maybe it could. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I do think the film was really good. I think the one difference, though, and this is something that someone brought up to me, was that compared to the other Disney remake films that have come out in recent years, a lot of the millennial Gen Zer audience have grown up with those familiarities. So Lion King, everybody knows the Lion King. Gen Zers know the Lion King. Millennials know it very well, of course. Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Aladdin. Those are Disney Renaissance films that we all grew up with in our generation. So we are familiar with those films. So the remake anticipation did really, really well because we already had some familiarity with the source material. Snow White is nearly 90 years old, the original one, right? And it first came out like, oh my goodness, it came out like, in the 1930s, there hasn't really been a major Disney remake to the film, not even a sequel. So public interest, I think, with this current generation waned. And I think Disney just thought that, because it was Disney, that it would be fine. But people will say, well, what about Cinderella? Cinderella has been redone in so many ways and has been such a consistent film in general in the Disney lexicon and in public that remake did not do as bad because of that. The same could be said for Alice in Wonderland. There's been several Alice in Wonderland themed Disney films that have come out over the years. And so I think that, and also major star power that I think made that make sense. But given that Snow White already had a very controversial casting, you have Gal Gadot, which people, a lot of people feel different ways about her. Even Rachel Zegler, her split. I think that the audience and the cohesion of the casting with the other politicalness did play a role, I think, in enthusiasm and excitement for Snow White. So I think that played a role within itself. But look, other movies did not fare that well either. Magazine Dreams did not do well at the box office. I did not know that they put the movie out as well in theaters again. It made $700,000 at the box office. Less than $1 million, under $1 million. The Jonathan Majors push just ain't pushing. There was a lot that happened this week. Now, I talked about his comeback, but so much has happened this week that I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel. Leaked audio. Rolling Stones dropped the bombshell. They leaked audio of him admitting to previously being abusive to his ex-girlfriend. But of course, in pure PR fashion, Jonathan Majors and Megan Good got married shortly after that news came out, where the media attention, he's been on this train. Now, people's been talking about Sherri Shepherd, and I have so many thoughts about Sherri Shepherd. Sherri Shepherd, there is always going to be those women who are going to be more of a boy mom than they are going to be for girls. And what I mean by that is, women who are going to always be, I don't want to use the word pick me, but they're going to always be more concerned about boys and men than they ever will about other women. And that kind of is baffling, but that kind of internalized sexism exists, right? So there was reports that at one point in time, Sherri Shepherd, who has the show Sherri, which I really don't watch. It's just, it replaces Wendy Williams right now, but like, whatever. But like Sherri Shepherd, kind of made this whole, this about Meg Thee Stallion twerking and just, having these complaints about Meg Thee Stallion, how she dressed. But interesting enough, with Jonathan Majors, she's talking about she sees her son in Jonathan Majors, and she was super gentle and apologetic with him and wanted to uplift this black man. And I just found it a little cringy because I was like, you can see your son in Jonathan Majors, but you're over here slut-shaming Meg Thee Stallion, and this woman has gone through a lot as well, right? But that's just the interesting that women will play a role in the sexism and the double downing of other women. And I found that an interesting fact. But the sad thing is that happens in every community. There are trans women like, Caitlyn Jenner, who will spend time talking about banning trans players in sports and play pick me for the Trump administration, be a Trumper, but at the same time think that that's going to save her and protect her. So it's a lot of hypocrisy that's there. I've noticed that, and I've noticed that a lot in this industry, that there's a lot of double standards when it comes to how we talk about women and progressiveness with the genders and whatnot. But Jonathan Majors, I this week I go up and down with him like a yo-yo. I think where I'm at with him is look, if people want to give him a second chance, if he wants to make a pleasant comeback, have at it, y'all. I'm reminded of how awkward and weird he is. He's going through some trauma, but I've also, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Which brings me to music and brings me to this man, which I'm just tired of talking about him. And honestly, I don't want to talk about him, but we're going to make this real quick and real brief. Kanye West. Every month, every season, he's going to up the ante on his antics. I mean, between him, now he's making insults about Beyonce's children, Beyonce and Jay-Z's children, calling them the R word, which I'm not going to say on this podcast. Look, Tina gonna say something. Tina knows. Miss Tina knows. Okay, Mama knows is gonna say something, and she did. I mean, what's going on with Kanye? Like, I have a sense that this is a man who wants to be a martyr. I think he's a man who wants to actually. I read a post that someone posted on Instagram and on Facebook, and they made this strong case. And I won't say that I'm sold, right? But what I will say is that I do think it's compelling. I think that the point being made is a strong case to be made, and I think it's time for us to really unpack this nuanced take on Kanye, because I'm tired of people making excuses for him. So there is this woman. She's an author. She's a writer. Her name is Bassie Ikpe. She wrote a book that y'all probably heard it's called "I'm Telling the Truth, But I'm Lying," and it's a book of essays. And she's a great writer. And she wrote this about Kanye, and I think it's a strong, compelling piece. It's a little long, but I'm going to read it anyway because I think this is. I mean, when I don't have the words, somebody has the words, and she has them. And I think what she has said is kind of how I feel at this point, and I'm going to move on after this on it. This is what they said, quote, "I made the decision 2 years ago to stop speaking about Kanye. There was a time when, like clockwork, he would spiral publicly and my inbox would fill with requests. People asking me for my thoughts, for a quote, for me to go on a podcast or write something to explain what was happening. And for a long time, I did. Because I wanted people to understand that mental illness isn't always something you can pity. It isn't always soft. It isn't always sympathetic. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's unlikable. Sometimes it's impossible to feel compassion for the person experiencing it. But that doesn't make it any less real. That doesn't make it any less of a struggle. Part of a specific brand of mental illness is that the voice inside your head, the negative self-talk, the self-loathing, the cruelest things you could possibly think about yourself stay locked inside. If you said them out loud, someone might push back. Someone might tell you it isn't true. They might ask you to stay. They might beg you not to do anything irreversible. But Kanye is at a level of fame and wealth that makes it impossible for anyone to reach him that way. He will never hit rock bottom in the way most people do. He won't lose everything. He won't be left alone. There will always be someone willing to stand next to him, to listen, to enable him, to stay close enough to his wealth and influence to feel importance. What he's doing now is creating an environment where the voice is in his head that tells him he's worthless is being echoed by millions of people. And that's the point. It's not about whether what he's saying is good or bad, right or wrong. It's about the fact that we are watching a man make sure he can never be forgiven. That there is no path back, no way forward. That he will never be able to wake up one day and say, I want to do better. Because he has ensured there will be no better. The self-hatred he already carries has become an inescapable reality. For a lot of us, when we emerge from a spiral, whether manic or depressive, there is a moment of clarity, a moment where we cringe and think, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? I still have those moments. I'll be doing something completely normal, watching TV, writing, when a memory from one of my lowest points surfaces, and I physically recoil. I cringe. I want to disappear from my own mind. Now, imagine that moment, your worst, your most shameful, your most self-destructive, was televised. Imagine that it wasn't just a memory, but a permanent headline, a clip played on repeat. Imagine people only saying they wish you were dead, and you think, yeah, me too. Imagine people wishing the worst for you, and you think, yeah, me too. That's what's happening right now. We're watching a man orchestrate his own suicide by public execution. I hate the term unaliving because it strips away the reality of what's happening. This isn't just a downward spiral. This isn't just controversy. It isn't just another Kanye moment. This is someone making sure there is no coming back. This is someone ensuring that sooner rather than later, we will only speak about him in the past tense. That's what he wants. That's what's happening. And I wish it weren't. My intent in speaking about him was that I wanted people to understand that mental illness can be ugly, that a person can be at their worst and still be worth saving, that even when you think there is nothing left inside you, when you believe you are beyond redemption, there is still a spark. There is still something worth holding on to. But I also stopped speaking about him because I realized I was doing more harm than good. Where I wanted people to understand that mental illness can be ugly, he was making it uglier. Where I wanted to show that a person can be at their worst and still be worth saving, he was proving again and again that he didn't want to be saved. I wanted people to know that even when you think there is nothing left inside you, when you believe you are beyond redemption, there is still a spark. There is still something worth holding on to, something worth saving. But what he is doing now is making sure we never see that spark again. Making sure that spark lights a fuse. No longer ticking, the explosion soon come. And that, to me, is heartbreaking. It's not about making excuses for his behavior. It's not about approving or co-signing his actions, his opinions, or his statements. It's about understanding that what we are witnessing is someone asking us to kill him. I think that's where we're at right now. I agree with her. I think that's where we're at with him. And I think at this point, you can only hope that the person gets right, but you also can no longer invest any more of your energy on that. Thoughts and prayers, hopefully they can work it out. Now on to Lizzo, briefly. Lizzo has been trying lately to make an argument that she's, that artists like, she compared herself to Aretha and Whitney, that critiques about her music, that it's a lot going on. That there's a lot of people who are, in the trenches. That she is trying to do her best music and people won't allow her to evolve or create or whatever. And she's making these interesting metaphors about it. In a perfect world, in a different world, if her music was better, I would agree with her. But right now, I do think that there's a point of her where there are some people that are just going to criticize her because of her body, and I think that's disgusting and not called for. But I also think that there is a part of which we need to recognize as artists, creators, but also listeners of music and fans, that sometimes people can make a good point. And I do think the point I'm making here is that I feel like so far with the music we're hearing from her, I don't necessarily think she's pushing the needle. I think that the issue I'm having with her is that the music isn't bad. I'm just a little bored. And that could be true. That could be a true point. You know, look, there are artists who have had hiccups and bad spots, and then they come back and they bounce back. And that's how I feel about, you know, talent like, you know, Gaga. Gaga's album debuted at #1, you know. Mayhem did a good thing. But that also came from artists who recognized that her fans were not lying to her when they said they wanted her to be better and do better. So sometimes two things can be true at the same time. You may want to evolve as an artist, but you also got to recognize that, you know, you might need to upgrade and step up a little bit when it comes to your artistry. And I think that's something that Lizzo has to reckon with herself. Just my thoughts. Now, with TV, I have been watching some good TV. Can't watch everything, but when I can, I do make time. So, I watched this recent episode of Abbott Elementary, and I must tell you all, I don't want to spoil it, but this might be a mouth-dropping episode that I was not prepared for, was not expecting. And when I tell you this was some good-ass TV, it was some good-ass TV. I won't tell it, but justice for Principal Coleman. Okay? That's all I will say. Now, this show I want to talk about on Netflix is called Adolescence. You all have been hearing about this show. It's been the talk of the town. It's very, very dramatic. Viewer discretion is advised. It's about a 13-year-old boy who kills one of his classmates, another child. It is very complicated. I wrestle with it. Watching it, I don't know how I feel all the way. I've had different thoughts about it watching it. When I first watched it, how I felt versus a couple of days away from the material, how I feel about it. It's nuanced. I don't have a solid answer. What I will say is it's timely. What I will say is that it is worth watching. But I also think maybe that was the intention of the series. It is a dramatization. It's a show. It's like a little dramatic mini-series. But what I want people to recognize is that sometimes when you watch a good show, it may not give you the very satisfying, digestible reward that you might, which is why I'm not watching Severance. I have not watched Severance. I know you all say it's a great show. Listen, y'all, I'm a writer. I got things to do. I don't have time to watch every goddamn thing. I'm not going to watch every show. Because if I did, I wouldn't be producing the content I'm producing, right? But if I could watch a little mini-series, I will, you know, and that's what I try to do. So I did see The Residents with, you know, Uzo, which is the Shonda Rhimes show with Uzo Urba, who is on that show. Look, it was, you know, it's okay. It wasn't the worst thing ever. It wasn't the best thing ever. It was all right. It was all right. I could have saved the time, to be honest. If you're super bored and you want to watch a who does it type of show, I guess it's worth watching if you're curious and you're bored. But there's other things to watch, like Sing Sing. Remember I've been telling you about this Domingo Coleman movie, Sing Sing, that I've been telling y'all with Clarence Macklin I've been in love with? Well, it's available to watch on HBO Max. I know they say just call it Max, but I'm calling it HBO Max, okay? Watch it on HBO Max. It's available to watch. It's called Sing Sing. Please tune into that. I watched it again and I was in tears. Such a great film, such a heartwarming film. And I watched it and I was like, you know what, y'all? Y'all know what? I'm going to need, you know, I got to keep 100. I'm going to need, I'm really going to need Coleman Domingo to win an Oscar very soon because, man, he did his big one. And I'm reminded of just how talented he was with it. So just wanted to put that on the radar. Now, before wrapping up this show, I told you I had some announcements I wanted to make. Before I do that, though, I want to give a shout out to State Representative Andre Carroll for passing Bayard Rustin Day. That is March 17th in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Just want to give a huge shout out to him, my good friend. Bayard Rustin is a black queer man, and in Pennsylvania, we now have a black queer man that has a day in our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Bayard Rustin is a Pennsylvania native. He is a black leader. He was a black civil rights icon. Ironically enough, Domingo Coleman actually played him in in Rustin, which was last year, not last year, the year before that, when he received his first Oscar nomination for Best Actor. Sing Sing is Domingo Coleman's second Oscar nomination for Best Actor, and he is making history, okay? Pretty big damn deal. What's cool about that is that, we now have a Bayard Rustin Day, which is one of my biggest, civil rights heroes. A complicated man, but definitely a hero nonetheless. And so March 17th is Bayard Rustin Day in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that happened because a black gay state rep pushed this legislation. So sometimes representation can show up for community in the ways in which we need it. And that was dope. But moving along to things involving me. This week, y'all, I have a sense that my Oxford Union debate is going to be on YouTube this week. If you have not followed the Oxford Union debates on YouTube, subscribe to that YouTube account to be the first to get the notification when it goes live. But of course, you all know that when it comes out, I will be having it ready and you'll be able to see it. So just want to put that out there. All right. So some big announcements. This week, this Wednesday and Thursday, I will be in Cleveland, Ohio. I know, right? This is random. I will not be in Philly on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. The reason why is because I am going to be a part of taping a TV pilot that is inspired by my book, The Case for Cancel Culture. This show is going to be a reality show called Canceled, and it's going to feature high-profile people and viral people that have been quote-unquote canceled. And this show is going to unpack what that experience is like. I will be in Ohio being a part of the taping of some pilot episodes. The show has not been picked up yet by, any major stations or whatever, because right now we're filming the pilot episodes. The plan is that we're going to film these episodes. It's going to run through some TV stations. We're going to run it through, and we're going to hopefully hope that it gets picked up by some people. Now, there are some producers, some people involved. I am going to be on this show as an expert. I'm going to lend my expert voice, and I'm going to be working on some other things, but I can't get into all those details. But I am a part of the show. I will be filming an episode with someone big, but I think I'm going to save that to surprise you all once it happens. I may take a picture and I may surprise y'all. Y'all are going to gag when you all find out who it is, and y'all are going to gag. Because this person is a TV icon. No, before y'all start, it's not Oprah. But this person is pretty cool. They do TV shows. And honestly, I grew up watching this person's show when I was in middle school, high school. And honestly, it's a dream of mine. It is a man. Before y'all start, he is white. But when y'all find out who it is, y'all going to be like, what? But I'm excited, and this is going to be really cool. And it's actually kind of one of those weird fantasy things where you're like, wow, I never thought that me and this person would be doing something on TV together. So we're going to film the pilot episodes. It's going to be shopped around. We'll see who picks it up. It's going to be ABC, Netflix. We don't know, but we definitely believe the show will get picked up. I'm super excited. The show is called, right now, the current title is called Canceled. And it's going to be a big damn deal. And hopefully it will be airing on a TV channel or streaming channel near you. So stay tuned. And I'm excited about it, y'all. I'm through the roof. I can't wait to get down to Ohio to tape these episodes. I cannot wait to be in the room with this particular creative, this TV. I want to call him a TV legend. I think the show that he did was legendary. But I can't wait. And of course, my besties that are my closties, I will tell y'all who the person is, and we could text and talk or whatever. But stay tuned. I'm super excited, and there's more to come, as always. And yeah, that's all for me. But we're kicking off spring on a very high note, as you can see. And as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.